Okay, watch this. A man slides a plate across a table to a kid and tells him to eat up. Sweet, right? Because in about 10 years, that kid helps burn a kingdom to the ground. Not a village, not a city, a kingdom, and a few 100,000 people with it. And the man feeding him knows exactly that, because he has already read the ending of this world. 5 kids, 5 monsters, 1 dead country, 10 years from tonight. So he goes and finds all 5 of them while they are still small enough to pick up. He pays for their beds, he pays for their meals, and he signs every letter himself. And one by one, they grow up worshiping him. Not liking him, worshiping him. The starved slave kid he buys out of a cage is the one who grows up to level whole kingdoms. A secret organization decides that everything that happens in this world happens because he wills it. And a whole kingdom quietly agrees that the powerless noble who bought them all breakfast is the final boss. He just wanted a quiet, comfortable life. He is about to get the loudest one on the continent. So let's back up, because the guy at the center of this is not a hero, a chosen one, or a swordsman. He is a 30-something office drone who worked 70-hour weeks until his body gave out, and he wakes up in a bed the size of a car, in a mansion, in a body that is not his. First thing he does is pick up a book to figure out where he is. He cannot read a single letter of it. He is holding it upside down, which honestly tracks. Whoever he is now has no magic, no talent, no combat skill, and no idea what country this is. Then a maid knocks and tells him his meal is ready. And the meal is a banquet. Roast everything, silver everywhere, a table longer than his old apartment. He eats the entire thing and decides the afterlife is going pretty well. Then she offers to draw his bath before bed, and he does not argue. Sitting in that bath, steam everywhere, he says the words out loud, "This is the life." He has no idea where he is, and he genuinely does not care yet. Then the maid mentions that the young masters are coming home tomorrow, so he should sleep early. He asks who. She says Leo Antonio, and then asks why he is talking like he does not know his own family. And he goes, "Palacio? Why does that name sound familiar in a bad way?" 2 seconds later, he is standing up in the bathwater in front of a screaming maid, because he has just placed it. Palacio is a name from a game he played. The world is called Psychedelia, and he knows exactly how it goes. Whichever route you take, 5 children eventually surface, and the story calls them the 5 great sins: greed, wrath, pride, sloth, obsession. Once they arrive, the kingdom, the nobility, and the capital all start sliding into the same hole. And the Palacio house is not the final boss of that story. The Palacio house is the tutorial. It is the sub-quest you clear before the real game starts, run by a family of criminals with a title. He checks which one he is. Third son, Alan Palacio. Character type, extra villain, which is a very polite way of saying he dies on schedule in about 10 years. Now here is the part that makes him dangerous, and it is not a power. He knows the plot. He knows the names, the order, the exact events that turn 5 children into the thing that ends this country. So he asks the only smart question available to a man with no abilities whatsoever. If he knows what happens in 10 years, why not go remove the causes now? And that is the plan. He is going to find all 5 of them while they are still kids, and he is going to fix them. Not fight them. Fund them. For the sake of his peaceful, extremely comfortable, noble life. The first one is already in a cage. His knight, Evan, runs the raid on a place calling itself an orphanage, which is a laboratory that keeps children as test material. Evan is a former mercenary with one eye and the flattest delivery in the kingdom, and Evan notices things. He tells his master that one girl in there was not normal. She was strong enough to walk out whenever she wanted, and she chose to stay locked in. Her name is Utia Bludia. In about a decade, she signs a contract with something that is not human, takes its power, becomes wrath, and kills hundreds of thousands of people. Right now, she is a white-haired kid in a cell who does not blink much, and Alan will not go and see her. He has her fed, funded, moved somewhere safe, and he stays away, which looks like neglect from the outside. Evan asks about it, and Alan panics and says the only thing he can think of: it is not yet time. Then he sends her one letter instead. Nothing important, just checking how she is doing. He tells Evan it might reassure her, which even he does not believe. Because in the story, people did try to calm this girl. An archbishop tried a spell that was supposed to make her love the person who cast it. It did not work, and what happened next is a color, not a scene. But that was 10 years from now, and it is not 10 years from now. Utia reads the letter in the dark. Her handlers say the mana coming off her is unreal, and that she is a strange child who does not seem to feel anything. Then she asks, very quietly, whether the man who sent this is the same Alan who bought her out. The kid who has never reacted to anything in her life asks why he does not want her at his side, and her handler, sweating, repeats the only line he was given. It is not yet time. She looks at the letter, and she decides she understands exactly what her master meant, which is the first genuinely terrifying moment in this story, because he meant absolutely nothing by it. She hugs the paper and smiles, and somewhere in her future the story is already printing her title. Sin of Wrath. Daughter of Monsters. The Bloody Queen. Meanwhile, the man who caused that is standing at a window in a very nice shirt, feeling great. One landmine defused, lifespan extended, time to go find the next kid. Next morning, Evan is confirming details of the second rescue, and he is careful about one word. He wants to know if the child was treated kindly. Not safely, kindly. The second son of the county has spotted Alan carrying a book. This is Tonio, and he finds it hilarious that the illiterate brother has started studying. He tells Alan to answer when spoken to. Alan does the maths in half a second and says he will leave the library free, which is when the boot goes in. There is a knife out, on the floor, in a house library, over nothing. And then the eldest walks in and calls both of them insects. That is Leo, and he does not want blood first thing in the morning, so somebody should get lost. He tells Tonio he reeks of drugs. Then he leaves, and nobody helps Alan up. Here is what he thinks about while lying on his own family's library floor. In the game, Palacio County was a joke, wiped early. Nobody cared, so he assumed the family was small time. It is not. The two brothers are fighting over who inherits the house, and away from the estate, they are enormous. The eldest runs the underworld's prostitution empire. The second runs a continental drug cartel. Those are the fingers he was planning to poke. So he updates the plan, touch neither of them, keep smiling, stay the useless third son, live long, die never. Now back to that word kindly. Evan says the young master is strange, and he means it as a real question. How does a sheltered noble know about an illegal slave market and secret bio-experiments a region away? And the boy they pulled out of that market went straight to the orphanage, without Alan meeting him. Because that boy is Deus Macallian. He has passed from owner to owner, sold, used up, and abused until nothing is left of him. And what is left becomes the sin of sloth. He is the second boss of the entire game. He is also where a lot of players quit, because what he does afterwards is not written to be enjoyed. So yes, kindly. Alan writes another letter to Utia, asking her to look after the sickly new kid coming her way, with small talk at the bottom so he seems normal. Somewhere in the dark, a voice tells Utia the thing she contracted with was the black goat. It congratulates her, says the great moon chose her anyway, and tells her to let her potential off the leash. Stay loyal, follow his orders, and she will get her revenge. She does not ask which orders. She has decided who he is. A servant sprints in with big trouble, and Alan assumes he is about to hear about a third boss. He does not. The second young master is dead. Fell. Accident. Terrible business. At the funeral, the eldest stands over the coffin with the worst poker face in the kingdom, finally getting to be Count Palacio. That fall had help, and the help was standing in the front row. He was bored and hungry at the funeral, and notes this family really is a dark fantasy. But it is also off-script. Tonio was not supposed to die like that, and nothing off-script is good news for a man whose only weapon is the plot. A year passes, with the inheritance fight settled and the drug business swallowed by the eldest, the county gets quieter. And Alan and Utia become pen pals. He writes to a 9-year-old about the weather. She keeps every letter. He is pleased with how the kids are turning out, and says it like a man whose stocks are up. Then Evan brings it, the Information Guild has a clue on the third one, an ancient book and a location. And while he looks forward to boss number 3, we cut to a drug distribution site called Margot. A few hundred armed men work there. Something is already inside. A man's own hand starts moving without him, and he screams for help that does not come. The white-haired girl walks through it like she is bored. Her companion asks if there is any point to this, and whether she pities them. She says no, they grind people up to make drugs, but she is not sure it helps her revenge. The answer she gets is colder than the massacre. Of course it helps. This is how you clear space for him to return. How could they let the place look shabby when he arrives? Then the moon comes out over the wreckage, and the organization gives itself a name. The Blue Moon, they will be his sword. Everything in this world will proceed according to his will. He has never met any of them. He does not know they exist. 2 years of letters later, our guy is hiding in his own back garden. Evan finds him anyway, because Evan always finds him. And in those 2 years, the other 3 got pulled out too. All 5 sins. Located, bought, fed, housed, alive. One shot of him crouched in the grass, shoving a plate at a filthy, snarling kid, telling it to eat up. The kid is swearing at him. He does not care. He just wants the plate empty. Greed was the hard one, apparently, and it only worked because Evan does the impossible parts and Alan supplies the walkthrough. Then he tells Evan the job is done and he can rest, and Evan asks if he is happy about it. He says he is. He says he is smiling right now. He is not smiling. Nothing on that face is moving. Evan generously agrees to pretend. In the story, these 5 did not become monsters because they were born wrong. Every one of the 5 great sins is the end product of what was done to them, and he arrived while those childhoods were still running. His actual fear was not failing to find them. It was finding them too late. rescuing 5 broken dolls. So he asks about the orphanage the way a man asks for test results. The report is good. The kids who sat like broken dolls have lightened up. They do not even need a caretaker, because Utia runs the place herself and is apparently very good at it. He genuinely does not believe that part. Then Evan asks the question that has been sitting there for 4 years. When is he going to meet them? And the answer is never. Not later. Not when they are ready. Never. He says it would be nice to be close to them. But in the game, these 5 were not people you want to share a room with, and he knows what becoming a sin does to a person. So he funds their entire lives from a different city and keeps the door shut. Maybe in 5 years, he says, to nobody. Either way, he has his own problem. A squishy man with no combat ability in a world that eats those. So he starts learning magic, and it turns out this body has talent. Then, mid-lesson, his tutor asks if he has heard of the Blue Moon. He has not. He gets told it is an organization making a name for itself hunting criminal rings, and he thinks that sounds great. Good for them. Then he is told they will be crushed soon. Then he is told they also kill nobles. Then he is told his tutor assumed he would know all about them. He goes quiet and gives Evan one new instruction. Sleep in the room next to his. Meanwhile, the Blue Moon is filing its weekly report, and the people filing it are the kids he paid for. A blonde girl complains that nobody could work out who she was, and that she offered to let them live if they named the color of her eyes. They could not. So the corpses were melted. Another reports the South is finished, and the Avalon people causing trouble have been turned into minced meat. Then the organization puts its hands together and agrees that all will proceed according to his will. Then someone says they have a problem. Strange word to use when everything is perfect under his will. The problem is that the eldest son of the county is moving against their master's greatness. There is a pause, and the order goes out in a very calm voice. Once the count is dead, poison the eldest slowly. 2 years later, Count Palacio dies. Officially, heart failure. Actually, an overdose. The funeral has attendance and no grief. It ends in silence. With the father gone, the eldest brother runs this house, and Alan has spent 5 years staying off that man's radar. So he packs. Evan asks if they are running, and he says not completely, they are going down. Down means Rodmill, a small town in South Palacio County, where nobody knows him and breakfast is a fried egg on toast. He gets 3 days? 3 days, and then he is back at the estate gates, looking at his brother's funeral. Stabbed, through the heart. His first thought is not grief, it is a scheduling error. This man was not supposed to die yet. He asks who could have done it, and a passing servant collapses and screams an apology for daring to look at him, which is new. Then Evan arrives with the answer he dug up, and he cannot get it out cleanly. He asks if the young master is, by any chance, the one who made Avalon vanish overnight. The carriage rolls out at sunrise, and for once this guy is going somewhere he actually chose. Evan asks why not a city, somewhere with people and shops and something to do. Alan shuts that down on the spot. Rodmill. A nothing village, and that's the point because Rodmill never shows up in the story he read. No plot, no war, no monsters in waiting, and the family keeps a spare villa sitting right in it. An estate that isn't part of the main estate, which is a polite way of saying nobody looks there. Evan doesn't buy a word of it, because this guy only talks like that when something's eating him. Alan's counter-argument is that good things are great. Meanwhile, the eldest brother is back at the estate, doing math on whether to kill him. He'd already planned to poison the kid once their father died. And the kid's leaving for the border anyway, which kills the last reason. Alan bothers him, and that's apparently enough. So he calls in Alman, his personal blade, and tells him to follow the carriage. And Alman asks whether he wants the boy killed. That's new. Alman has never talked back in all these years, and the brother is thrown by hearing an opinion out of his knife. He starts in on the line about whose job it is to do what he's told. He gets 4 words in. Alman runs him through. The brother who ran half the county's underworld is down on his own balcony asking how he dared. Alman tells him he liked playing war, and that it was fun up until now. Then the mask comes down. Alman is Hedon, and Hedon is Blue Moon. He recites the creed the Red Moon taught them. He moves on that man's orders, and anyone reaching for the Great Moon gets cut. Leo's guards come up the stairs and go down in pieces. Standing over the body, Hedon says he waited 2 years for that order. 2 years for 4 words? And with those words, Avalon vanishes from this continent permanently. Cut to Rodmill at sunrise, where Alan wakes up whenever he feels like it, eating what he wants, watching the boy he bought out of a slave cage way up opening a toast stand. He gets 4 days of that. Then Evan comes in holding a letter. Leo Palatio is dead, and the estate requests Alan Palatio's return. His free trial of heaven has expired. There's a funeral in the snow. Then he's walking his own front hall while every servant goes quiet. One of them asks when exactly he became the shadow leader. So he sits Evan down and asks to have it explained why he is the villain. Evan's answer is that he's the only one who benefits. He left, the brother died, Avalon evaporated, and the third son has a spotless alibi and a straight road to heir. Congratulations. Shadow leader of the county, the man who had a swordmaster assassinated. Evan announces this with jazz hands. Alan is not having fun. Because nobody erases an underworld boss in an instant, and only one outfit hunts other outfits. The Blue Moon. Except the Information Guild says the Blue Moon didn't do it. They leave a mark where the body should be, and Avalon's people were put down with swords. And the Blue Moon isn't in the story he read, gone before it even starts. Then who did? Somewhere else, 5 people are reporting in. No traces, nothing left behind, only corpses. 486 Avalon soldiers still standing. The white-haired swordsman shrugs and says he cut them all in half. The room says good. The girl with the red eyes says perfect. That's how Avalon, the organization that owned the Asteria Kingdom, turned to dust in 5 days. Except one of them says the cleanup wasn't perfect. He found a document with the nobles tied to Avalon, and it's a list. One name sits deeper in it than all the rest, the Altia Dukedom. Nobody has to finish the sentence. Someone volunteers to handle it quietly and draws. Alan still thinks he's on holiday. The girl with the red eyes doesn't have to finish her sentence. Masked kids, one Altia document, and a swordsman offering to handle it quietly. Nobody tells him no. Then Utia works the room like a checklist. Last item. The Information Guild side is clean, handled off the books. The cloaked boy floats documents on purple threads. Every guild tells the same story. A hell sword, made by the swordmaster. She wants it tracked, because this can never reach that person's ears. The boy pushes back, since that person's family got targeted first. It wasn't an order. She reminds them they're swords, and a sword doesn't think for itself. That person already knows everything, so never disappoint him. 4 of the deadliest people alive, sweating over a man they've never met. The most dangerous thing in that building is scared of being found out. Alone, eyes shut, hand over her mouth, hugging that ledger. Everything for the Great Moon. And the orphanage goes dark. A month past the funeral, the new heir is face down in paperwork, crying. He wanted to loaf around and eat, like nobles are supposed to. Instead, his brother died 6 years early, and the county's backlog fell on him. Somebody knocks, and it's a very nervous young master. The staff is lined up in the hall working like their lives depend on it. Under his father, these same people skipped work constantly. 2 old retainers shake at his desk, asking whether he's angry. One of them says he doesn't want to die. And the kid he bought out of a slave cage works the next desk. Fireplace, meat on skewers, and Evan says it's honestly astonishing. Second tier, in 2 years, self-taught, no instructor. Normally that's 4 years of lessons plus a bloodline that cooperates. Alan agrees his talent's pretty decent. He drilled it for self-defense, and real magic needs fine control. Half-baked magic is a party trick. At first, this was exciting. Now he's studying to save his own skin, and he's hit a wall. His mana hall is tiny. He stands there sniffling that nothing works while Evan roasts dinner. Innate capacity is a weight class, and he was born a featherweight. Very, very small. Then Evan waves an envelope, because the invitation finally came. A ball. The Southern Asteria Kingdom's noble exchange, less party than trading floor. He's about to be a count, so he'll network. Full serious mode, while Evan holds a plate of snacks. He walks in, and the room folds away from him. A couple retreats, 2 nobles whisper, a group drifts somewhere else. Evan asks him not to be too upset. He is not upset at all. Pallatio no longer means his great-grandfather. It means troublemakers from the east. But he didn't come here empty-handed. He's been secretly practicing a social skill, and the social skill is wine. He tells a noblewoman the aroma is distinctive and he'd like a few bottles. Then he deploys the gentle smile he's been rehearsing. The smile lands like a death threat. She goes white, promises her father will send it, and flees. Evan is quietly losing it while Alan decides she's just shy. By morning, the loot pile has grown again. A Palladion steed, Penia citrus tea, Valanda metalwork, Malentino wine. He studied wine for this. The rumor that he removed his own brothers made him the man everyone avoids. He goes out for air, and a red-haired woman watches him leave. On the balcony, he asks where it all went wrong. Then a voice behind him asks for a moment. Somebody actually spoke to him. He turns, and she gives her name, Loria, 3rd daughter of Duke Altia. Altia, one of the 3 great shadow players, the northern troublemakers. So there's no chance she's a normal person, except he can't place her, because she isn't in the story he read. She says she'll be blunt, and asks him to lend her his strength. She's going to be assassinated soon. She has no idea she's asking the man whose people already marked her house. The last person to say Altia out loud drew a sword. A girl is kneeling in the dark, asking Alan to lend her his strength. She's Duke Altia's daughter by his mistress, safe in his house until he started dying. His condition's worsening now, and her sisters will kill her the second he's gone. But he doesn't recognize her, meaning in the story he knows, this girl died before it started. She offers half the Altia fortune if he'll stop it. He turns her down. The terrifying Shadow Lord she's kneeling to can barely keep himself afloat, so she leaves, and he wishes her luck finding a reliable ally. Two people at the edge of the room heard every word. And Altia approached the Great Moon, and she's the only one off Radon's list, so the rest of that family gets handled on the Red Moon's command. Their other job is keeping something called the Avalon case from reaching him. Him. No name. Cut to a ball, where Alan impersonates a wall and wonders if a barrier is warding people off. Then a red-haired woman walks straight through it and says hello, and he's thrilled for 2 seconds. Then the fan comes up and he clocks what she is. Another shadow player. Asteria has 3. Altia in the north, Palatio in the east, and Zenonia, the troublemaker of the west. This is Kalia, Count Zenonia's eldest daughter, asking whether she's really that famous. Alan wants a quiet, noble life, so he compliments her and ducks her invitation to talk privately. Alan, wine glass in hand, tells Evan they're being tailed. The order that comes back for the Watchers: keep watching, then eliminate. Here's where the ball stops mattering, because Alan never came south for a party. He came for a canyon, and the labyrinth of whispers carved inside it. 8 rooms, 8 riddles, 1 very powerful artifact for whoever clears them all. He's run this dungeon countless times in a game, so every route is memorized. Evan wants to know how a man who barely leaves the estate knows it by heart. Alan says he has his ways, with a face that makes Evan ask him to stop joking. Wrong answers drop something on you, and Evan carves through those somethings without breaking stride. 4 years he's served him, and he still can't read him. Crime rings dismantled, the family cleaned up, orphans fed, slaves bought free, pointless letters delivered. But everything this man touches somehow ends well, so Evan follows anyway. The last mechanism finishes, the door opens, and Alan walks past a whole treasure chamber for 1 black ring. Evan calls it the most useless thing there. Alan says touching anything else brings trouble, and leaves holding the oath of restraint. He also knows the rock piles out in the canyon are golems, and they come with blades. Behind the blades is an enemy Evan can't identify. Alan says he's handling this one himself. Evan's entire response is, "What?" Then Alan invokes the ring, and the world goes silent. A voice calls him a fragment inheriting the great will of Neakula, and asks for 2 restrictions. The oath is an absorption-type artifact. You chain yourself, and it pays you in power. First, the hand signs of Babylonia every time he casts, for power to twist the world's laws further. Granted. Second, the words of Babylonia chanted every time, for greater power to defy those laws. Then nothing happens, and he starts sweating, because he copied the skill icon exactly. Granted. Both restrictions together are the highest magic attack power that game ever allowed. The voice thanks the one who inherits the will, promises to watch forever, and dissolves the ring into him. Alan has no idea what inheriting the will means. Time restarts, and Evan is bleeding and shouting that second-tier magic isn't enough here. He's right, because Alan's lightning sphere looks pitiful with all his mana poured in. That's his ceiling, no matter how hard he trains. Which is why it's time to test the price he just paid. The sphere goes blue, and it does not stop growing. And with the ring already absorbed, he swears he can still feel it on his thumb. A stone golem the size of a house waits in the dark, red core burning. His hands come up, and blue lightning knits itself together above his palm. Then the incantations drop like cards on a table. Refraction, then repulsion. Blue light, then a line of diffraction. Then he lets go. The chain lightning doesn't hit the golem so much as delete the room. Floor, walls, an armored golem soldier mid-thrust, all of it white. Evan's face in the middle of that is the whole reaction shot. Smoke clears on Alan in a cavern that lost its ceiling. His knight asks whether he's been hiding his strength this entire time. Alan says, not at all. 15 years a mercenary, and Evan has never seen second circle magic do that. Alan is just as thrown. Back in the game, this was turn-based, 1 sign or word per turn, 10% each. He stacked 4 incantations across 5 turns onto a stock chain lightning spell. The price he paid to cast it all. Every spell needs the signs and the words. And the wall thanks him, some forgotten god, grateful to the human who remembers the gestures. Outside, flat on his back, he says that was more exhausting than the fight. He asks who builds a place this unpleasant, and the name clicks. In the game, it was the Maze of Whisper, a mid-game grind zone with a public guide. The director said Palaeon owns the maze, so players renamed the whole dungeon after him. Evan shrugs it off out loud. Some guy named Palaeon made it. 3 weeks of grinding, and he tells Evan they're heading east for something he won't name. In the game, only the number moved. Here, the spell changed shape with every word. His mana pool is pitiful. His control, apparently, isn't. Night falls on the maze, and somebody else walks in. Green hair, green eyes, alone, and she knows where she's going. She stops at a wall of glowing script, the glyphs of the Alan F. Empire. It's a letter to a friend about to be left behind, signed Coward Palaeon. She laughs once. Here, Palaun isn't a name on a forum. He's the emperor who stopped the Black Things and beat the Alakulaka that ate a city's hearts. The brilliant emperor, Palaun the Great. She knows because she was born carrying the ancient library, every recorded thing there is. She was already watching him, since the Bloody Queen follows him, which only happens in history. What she didn't expect was the Great Moon being the friend that letter got left for. Worse, the phrase he whispered down there exists nowhere in her library. All the knowledge in the world, and no entry for him. She meets her people in the woods and tells them the Red Moon was right. The others come back with nothing. The Dark One is dead, head twisted all the way around in midair, nothing there to twist it. A window burns in Zenonia County, where a rumor just turned into fact. A red-haired woman replays a meeting with a man whose eyes she calls the Abyss. He called her famous. She told him Count Zenonia was strong and famous, meaning her father. And she has never attended a single social event. So she asks the old man at the desk if that isn't fascinating. He agrees, flatly, that she's the Count, while black smoke curls off her hand onto his. Nobody alive is supposed to know the daughter runs the house and the father is furniture. A servant sprints down the corridor calling her name, Kalya, and says to check her room. There's a body in it, strung up where she sleeps. One of hers seal never activated, so he died without talking. Somebody carried him in there purely to be found. Then she laughs, because a man cracked her one real weakness the first time they met. Meanwhile, the man himself is on a couch scratching an itchy ear, ? Overhead. Two people are building a file on him from opposite ends of the country, and he still hasn't told anyone what he came home to do. We open inside somebody else's head, sizing Alan up, the distinguished one of the underworld, eyes cold the way her father's were. He was her last lifeline, and he turned her down flat, because the deal cost more than it paid. This is Loria Altea, youngest of the Altea ducal house, and her siblings have stripped her of every asset she had. She goes home with no leverage, running on how much her sick father still loves her. The maids shout that the youngest lady is back, then tell her Lady Diane and her brother took their own lives. Loria's face just stops working. She asks about Timalian and Marianne. Cut to Blades. A white-haired kid with blue eyes and a grin already walked that mansion, bored. A maid gets as far as saying Lord Timalian is, and somebody screams for Lady Marianne. Then a notice that every target is eliminated. Every rival Loria had cleared in one night. And she remembers his parting line, that good things would happen for her. The true mastermind, she works out, hides his claws until the moment he takes everything, and she wakes up the only Altea successor left. All she can do is laugh. She wonders what devil she signed a pact with, but there is no going back. 2 months on, a stranger arrives on Duke Altea's order with Cernus wine, worth a few thousand gold, and a card signed Loria Altea. Alan asks if it is really for him, and the man says the Duke prepared it personally. The Duke herself. Alan does the arithmetic, and it lands on the youngest daughter running the house. Cut to Loria at her dead father's desk, in the office she was never allowed into. Illness took him, the funeral came and went, and she took the succession ceremony. Nobody suspected her, with a ballroom of witnesses, and her own secret organization already wiped out by those same siblings. She never told him her father had died, so he must want the Altea name for something she cannot see yet. Her merged organizations still do not touch what he holds, so all she can offer is the power to move the political board from the shadows. She will wait for his call, and she really hopes he liked the wine. Back at the estate, Alan is not celebrating. The girl who came to him under a death sentence is a duke now, and he planned none of it. Something is off. A few months later, 5 years out from where the original story starts, someone yells for the master, then corrects it to the count, because his succession went through. He never planned on the title, but he intends to squeeze the perks out of it. Evan hands him the letter from Utea. He asks whether anything surfaced on the assassins who killed Leo, and the Information Guild is still digging. Evan asks what his goal is now and guesses it is not revenge. It is not. The drift from the original script is his own butterfly effect, so he stays ready. Evan says he sounded like an actual count for once. Then he opens the letter. Everyone is fine. Deus has taken his puppet shows professional, Seolrang plays games with her friends, Radon has started a garden, he has never seen one of their faces, and he is grinning at the page anyway. He asks how old the children are, and Evan says they are ready for society. Some have already left. He gathered them because they were wounded, and none of them are wounded anymore, so it is time to let them go. He tells himself he cared for them enough that they will never awaken as deadly sins. Right. And look what he grew. Utea, the talent of faith, Deus, the sword, Rinne, the mind for study, Seolrang, a born fighter, Radon, an apostle. So he writes back, prepares a gift for each of them, and does not get up until it is done. He wonders whether any of this comes back to him once they are adults. Then the letters go out at sunrise, delivered to each child individually. 2 girls tear theirs open and start cheering. A boy in a dark coat takes his without a word. And Utea stands there, holding hers, red eyes down, giving nothing away at all. The orders have arrived, and this time they don't come as one letter for the group. Everybody gets their own. The blonde kid is bouncing off the walls, and Utea is the only one who used to read these first. So they open one, and the terrifying instruction from their god is small talk. One of them points out he's been burying orders inside ordinary conversation since day one. Somebody asks, why letters at all? Why not a magic communicator? Why not just go see the man? And the room lands on the scariest answer available. They don't have to understand it, only follow it. That is chillingly steadfast trust in a guy who has never been in a room with them. One is sent to Caliburn, the nation of knights. One draws a desert colony and complains that she doesn't like deserts. One gets the entertainment city, one the maze city, one the holy kingdom of Rosario. 5 kids, 5 corners of the map, routed by a man who has met none of them. Every letter also names where to find a gift, contents unknown. One rule before they scatter. The name Blue Moon stays out of their mouths, unless he says it first. 3 months later, the god in question is on his floor with a magic textbook he has to test on himself. The Information Guild still has nothing on who killed Leo, which from a guild that finds everything is its own answer. He clocks it fast, saving the 5 deadly sins kicked the butterfly effect out of his hands. So he calls the search off, figuring an outfit that big won't touch him if he never pokes it first. He decides this from the top of it. Then Evan mentions Deus got knighted in Caliburn, and Alan says good for him and moves on. 6 months after that, Evan brings one more update. Deus is a sword of Caliburn. That makes him the 5th Master Knight. Because Master Knight isn't a promotion, it's practically a species. You have to be a sword master first, and pushing mana through a blade takes 15 years. Then you need a derivation, your own technique, and that takes decades. Deus doesn't even have his derivation yet. He beat the 4th sword in a duel, and the nation handed him the title anyway. For scale, Reinhardt, the first sword, is the youngest Master Knight who ever existed, and he was 32. The kid Alan bought out of a cage did it with no sword training at all. Alan wonders if he can leech off this, then wonders if any of them might say thanks. Nah, Utia's letters are the only ones that ever come, folding in news about the other 4. Cut to Kirtham, the Caliburn capital's noble district, and the mansion of the Solar Eclipse Knights, the order Deus Michaelian founded. Then a girl comes flying at him, yelling for her brother, and the deadliest swordsman in the country clears his throat. A year ago, this one lost everything to the Black Things. Not a battle, an erasure, and then a rage with nothing left to aim at. Being saved by the Great Moon was never reason enough to kneel to him. The reason was the girl who promised the revenge would be theirs to take, with their own hands. So they took the missions, the training, the years, and never cared what it cost them. Then the first personal order arrives, addressed to them alone. A small hotel in southern Caliburn, a gift left waiting upstairs. It doesn't excite them even slightly, and they go up anyway, because he asked. And the gift from the man they've never met isn't a weapon or a title or money. It's a person, small, curled on the stone floor, breathing, someone they had already buried. They're holding a sobbing kid worth more to them than their own life, sent by a stranger who signs off with small talk. 4 more gifts are sitting in 4 more cities right now? And the man who arranged every one of them still thinks nobody ever says thanks. A warm little house, and a man is crumpled on the floor at the foot of the stairs. The girl he buried in his head years ago is standing right there, breathing. This is the swordsman of the 5, and the girl pouring the tea is his sister, Siley. She tells him where she went, a dark hall, years of it, waiting to be killed. Then something in a hood walked into that hall and emptied it. She's the one who got out. A few years later, she's on a slave merchant's floor with a blade coming down, and Evan gets there first. After that, medicine starts arriving from a sponsor she's never met, with a note saying she's safe under the name Palacio. She's grateful to a man whose face she has never seen. Her brother goes very quiet. He never told anyone about his family, and Utia only knew that the Black Lamb took him. So how does the man they call the Great Moon know about a sister nobody knew existed? He knows everything. Utia's red eyes come back, and every question he's chewed on for years clicks together. He filed her devotion under a kid too loyal to think, and the fool in that story was him. That throwaway line about good things happening was a hint planted years early for the child left alone. Across the table, his sister calls him brother, and he can't answer. He remembers his own sword moving without asking him, and the man being generous anyway. He'd been living on hate, and his family was being fed in a tavern he never knew about. Utia promised he'd understand why she follows that man. She wasn't a fanatic, and she wasn't blind. His own letter told him where to go, Caliburn, and a knight's uniform. Now he repays it. So the mission is 1 line long and completely unreasonable Master Knight, the pinnacle of Caliburn. An order stacked with the best swordsmen in the nation, and somebody tells the captain it's time? Cut to a hall of them standing in rank, waiting on him. This expedition is only the first stepping stone for the order he's building, the Solar Eclipse. He does not care what it costs. He's waiting for the day he can hand that man a recompense big enough to satisfy him. Then the Solar Eclipse rides north into the snow, and we leave him marching. Meanwhile, the guy who caused all this is lying by a fountain, pleased his kids are grown. He's been face down in books since the labyrinth, researching the phrase. His handwriting is so bad he's mad at himself for using cursive. Report's done. Refraction strengthens the imperfection inside a finished spell, so its range spreads. Repulsion crushes the form and warps whatever you just fired. Blue light reinforces parallel magic like lightning. The line of diffraction grants penetration. There are rules: no rearranging, no repeating one, 4 maximum. With the hole where his mana pool should be, he gets 1 spell a day. Now then, 2 months of experiments, time to see what they bought. He eliminates the focal point of a mana sphere and forces the imbalance to spark. Fixation, then compression, then breakdown, and the air starts eating itself. It begins to fester toward a purpose, which is a very calm way to put it: fleeting bloom, and the whole field goes white-blue with lightning that will not stop branching. He notes, mildly, that order matters, because leading with breakdown failed. Somebody off to the side screams that this is impossible. He turns around. At the edge of his field, a red-haired woman calling it origin magic and an old man coming apart. Alan's first thought isn't the lightning, it's why Kalia is here. The old man shouts that origin magic puts him at the caliber of a 7th circle mage. Alan, who taught himself 4 words to make sparks, looks at the chart of circles and asks if they mean him. 2 strangers just watch the man with no powers do something the continent forgot, and one already wants to own him. We open in the Palladio Mansion reception room, and the red-haired woman there has a checklist. 2 reasons. Confirm what Count Palacio wants, and measure the organization that handed him this county. And she didn't come alone. The old man sweating beside her is Vianel, a 5th circle mage the magic tower threw out, who can wipe out a division of soldiers. He's shaking so hard she can hear it. She's never seen fear on him. Then Alan strolls in and apologizes for the sudden visit like he owns the room. She's been dying to meet him. He calls her the daughter of Zenonia. Then he sets one thing straight: what he used earlier wasn't origin magic. He's 2nd circle. That's all. Off to the side, the mage is quietly told to keep his mouth shut. Alan says he has work, and she takes the exit. Then he drops the line that costs him 5 months. If she ever needs someone to talk to, he says, she should go see Duchess Altia. He thinks the 2 of them would get along. Carriage rolls out. Outside, Evan asks why a ruined western house like Zenonia is sniffing around out east. Alan's real fear is an origin magic rumor pulling every strength-hungry lunatic to his gate. He's sure Zenonia would never actually visit Altia, since those 2 are rivals in the underworld. Hold that thought. In the carriage, the mage finally answers her. No, that wasn't origin magic. Origin magic means writing your own law onto the canvas of absolute, unchanging principle. What he caught with his observing eye was worse. Alan wasn't writing a new law. He was bending the old one. He fixated the lightning, twisted it, and collapsed the rule holding it. The mage knows it on sight because studying it made his name. That was the Great Forgotten. He tells her to stop asking, then gives one instruction: do not oppose Count Palacio. She watches the county shrink behind her. She's already a piece on someone's board. 5 months later, about 2 years since the children left the orphanage, Evan brings a report. It's not about the kids. Zenonia County and Altia Duchy have signed an alliance, the top 2 names in the underworld. Alan does the math. He pulled the sins off their path, and now 2 masterminds are allying. Then the real horror lands. She actually took his advice. So he does the only thing he can, and writes an apology letter. He tells Kalia he's sorry for coming off cold, and blames being bad with words. Evan gets to deliver it through the Mercenary Guild. Pen still out, he thinks about Rodden and Seolrang, silent since Utia wrote that they'd arrived. He hopes she isn't dead in a gutter, and that she found the gift buried in it. He pointed her at the essence of the Golden Mane tribe, the one item that keeps the sin of pride from rotting into a sin. He gave away the treasure he'd saved for emergencies, telling himself she can earn it back. Cut to a desert colony, a nation of fighters where strength buys the world. A girl with wolf ears drags herself out of a trial and screams that it's over. In her fist is a burning gold gauntlet, and she's thanking the great moon for it. Legendary item, inherited for centuries by the Wolfkin, descendants of the kings of all beastkin. Turns out what her family told her as a kid wasn't a fairy tale. She takes the essence, passes every trial of the inner world, and comes out on fire. And she has a list. Become the strongest gladiator, gather the scattered Golden Mane tribe, kill the black dragon that killed her parents. All of it for a benefactor she has never met. So she calls him the Great Moon. Under a blue moon, she walks into the desert. The tribe rises again after 500 years. Which means the man who mailed her a treasure map now has a wolf god building an army in his name. And he still hasn't heard a single word from her. Evan brings the guild's report on the children, and Alan reads it like Monday email. Seolrang's doing well enough in the colony to earn the alias Golden Flash, gold lightning scattering soldiers. Radon's file is thinner. Learning to work somewhere called Raxus, the rest unverified. Then Alan tells him to pack, because the trip runs a month minimum, which is news to Evan. Too far for the green magic tower, except they're going to the blue one, near Labyrinth City. Door shuts, and Alan flops full length on the couch. A month in a carriage already drains him, but the item that props up his mana hole is down there. He ground that map for hours in the game, the signature leveling grind of psychedelia. Nobody's ever reached the end. One cheater hit floor 150 and found more below. The forum asks why build floors nobody can reach. Answer: to watch us suffer. Relics drop constantly there, which is why appraiser is a rich man's job, and Rene sits that exam soon. Labyrinth City is really Larthania, ruled by no one, and a southern corner holds an appraisal shop called Murd. The Lord of Larthania picks up his flame device, imprinted so a trickle of mana holds the fire an hour. The green-haired girl behind the desk is Rin, and that imprint is a gift from the Great Moon. When his letter ordered her to become an appraiser, she couldn't see how that served killing the black things. Then she saw his gift. The card reads Eye of the Stalker, which on paper just identifies low mana items. Red chains snap off a golden eye, one by one, and the hidden imprint unlocks. A counter lights over the relic, 0 out of 500. Awakening it means feeding it sacrifices. The count jumps to 248, and she needs 252 more. Only high-tier relics count, and a wrong offering wipes the stack, so it takes someone who never misses. That's her, born with the Library of Eternity. All of it to kill the Black Wolf, by the will of the Great Moon. 3 weeks later, the Blue Magic Tower, where a woman buried in paperwork says the master's out. Her plate reads Vice Tower Master, 6th Circle Mage Fenia Kryzin. In the main story, she hits her 8th circle at 20 and runs this tower. He says he's here about the Time Gate and that he can eliminate it. A Time Gate is a crack into a mysterious subspace, and it spits out winged, fanged anomalies. A magic circle spins over her eye as she measures his talent, and she is unimpressed. She tells him to leave, mocking it. Right, he'll close the gate and claim the treasure. Then she reads him. People are working out he only became Count when his siblings died. Mana rolls off her, and Evan mutters they'd get folded in half if they tried anything. So Alan raises. If he fails, his entire property goes to the tower, sworn by oath. She goes quiet. At a sealed stone door, she reminds him everything he owns is hers the moment he fails. Privately, she's written him off as a lucky man, scraping the edge of the 2nd circle. And what she hasn't told him is that the gate never needed closing. A chest spits out of the floor, because these gates vanish on their own in 3 months. Except this one's been trouble for over 2 years. Alan stands with both hands closed, a small white sigil burning at his shoulder. She asks if he's seriously using his hand as a medium, a method old tomes file near Fairy Tale. Then the word cuts off in her mouth. White streaks tear down the frame and a red-white glyph blooms in the dark. She can't move. Nothing moves. Red script crawls the chamber and an enormous slit tears open inside it. Alan stands with his back turned in a red-black storm while a giant red and gold eye stares out. Fenia, frozen, looks up at a glyph the size of the room. And someone in a red robe is already walking toward all of it. Alan's locked in place inside the gate, and nothing here moves. Not slowed. Stopped. His eye of observation switches on by itself and starts reading whatever's in front of him. Clockwork, the size of a cathedral, turns in the dark, and an answer comes back. Absolutely not. Whatever's in there tells him doom is already set, like a chalice filled with poison. A red eye opens in the black, and the space drops into absolute silence. Then a long-haired figure answers that she understands the demand, one tear on her face. The gate closes. He came for a relic, and the method he used was already worn out, so he covered the gap with random magic. One person looked. The Vice Tower Master is behind him, hands over her mouth. She swears she won't tell anyone. His actual thought is that his bluff failed. She keeps going, promising silence, insisting she's excellent at secrets. He turns to Evan and says, "Let's go home." She sprints after him, yelling at him to wait. Then she's shoving mana potions at him, hand-brewed, 2 bottles worth an entire mansion. She thanks him for closing the gate and swears she'll stay quiet about what he demanded. Then she gets a better idea, and the idea is a mana oath. Blue chains rip out of the floor and wrap them both before he finishes the word. He says, okay. There is no version of this where he clears the misunderstanding up. So he leaves with 1 relic, 5 potions, and an oath over something he can't identify. In the carriage, he looks at the prize, and it's crude, plain, unremarkable. He asks whether it performs, and Evan isn't sure. It performs. The gems in that bracelet pull mana out of a mage's core and hold more than Alan's whole body can. He has less mana in him than a support item. He decides, that's good enough. It was never for fighting. It's for investigation and for not dying. Outside, the tower staff are suddenly very polite about his safe trip. He clarifies, just in case, that he's a 2nd circle mage. She says she knows, and that he really looks like one too. He can't tell if he's being mocked. A carriage rolls up to the Altia Ducal house. Inside, a woman in olive green greets her red-haired guest as Lady Zenonia. Zenonia says being here is a relief, since neither has to measure rank against the other. And Count Palladio's foresight astonishes her again, because his advice was 1 sentence. Go visit Duchess Altea. She followed it, understood him in minutes, and now two of the region's biggest names are allied on his say-so. A power struggle stops meaning anything when there's an absolute number one. Then she gets to why she's here a month early, because he sent a letter using the visit as cover. Altea asks what's in it. Nobles, apparently. On the surface, it's a bland apology note about complaints reaching him. Underneath, every name is sorted by faction, royalist against aristocrat, all people he met at the ball. He doesn't like the aristocrats, and he doesn't like the royalists. Zenonia asks out loud whether he's telling them to kill all of them. Altea suggests common sense. Then they land on it together, and it's bigger than the killing. He wants the existing nobility pushed out and a new regime in their place, and with the hegemon of the West, it's achievable. They start working the plan out in detail. Meanwhile, the Blue Magic Tower's master has heard that Count Palacio closed a time gate. She wants that explained in greater detail. The only witness is currently oathbound and thrilled about it. Back at the orphanage, a kid nearly dies on a sweet potato and insists it's good. The sun goes down, and somebody just wants to go home. Alan figures Utia should have his letter by now. Then we're somewhere new. At night, a bell tolling over white lilies on temple steps. A silver-haired girl in white robes stands in the middle of them. She turns, and she smiles, and her eyes are red. Nobody gives her a name. We open in the Blue Magic Tower, where the old man running the place just got back from a trip up north. Selene Micardo, 8th Circle Mage, Tower Master, expects his usual noisy welcome. Instead, his disciple is face down on a desk, saying nothing. Pina made Vice Tower Master absurdly young, and her arrogance is a tower-wide legend. She once made a rookie cry. He never planned to fix that, figuring 7th Circle would humble her on its own. Something beat him to it. He pushes for details and gets one line. Account closed the time gate. She swore an oath, so that is the entire report. He pats her head, and she doesn't even swat his hand away. He's grinning now, because whatever shut Pina up was not ordinary magic. Origin magic. Count Palacio of the Asteria Kingdom, he thinks, and decides this is very interesting. Cut to Alan, who has no idea he just became somebody's research project. Since he got the mark of the corrupted, he's been grinding phrase research. Out in a field with Evan, one spell leaves a crater in the grass. Evan says his magic grows every time he watches it, and this isn't 2nd Circle output. Gravity is 2nd Circle, and at maximum, it shouldn't be enough to kill a person. The hole in the ground disagrees. Proficiency buys precision, not power, and phrases are trigger words that shift attributes. He's rotated near identical phrases for months, and his chart only creeps up as he tunes them. Nothing on that chart explains a crater. Evan cuts in with the monthly letter from Utia. Alan heads inside, already out of his 3 casts for the day. Curses sell power for a price, but nobody from the east is anywhere near him. Then he floats faith and laughs it off, because nobody in the underworld even tracks him. It makes no sense, so he decides to forget it and live on. Cut to the Holy Kingdom of Rosario and its white capital Rionel, built around Sharona, goddess of the moon. A paladin named Loke greets a sister in a courtyard of white lilies. She ranks below him, and she isn't even wearing the sash of holy grace. He bows to her anyway. This run, they saved 8 children and 25 lives. For 20 years, he couldn't feel a drop of divine power, and he was about to quit. She told him that if he wanted it that badly, try having faith in the moon. Not the goddess the moon. He asked what that meant, and she said he'd figure it out by doing it. He was desperate enough to try anything, so he prayed for days. And it came. After 2 decades of nothing, the power finally moved in him. Then the fear landed, because he gave that faith to the moon, not Sharona, heresy. But the goddess's own artifacts still blaze in his hands, so borrowed power is borrowed power. When he asks her why the moon, her answer sounds gentle and absolutely isn't. Faith in the invisible takes forever to manifest, and it's easier to believe in what exists. And the moon, she says, will always be with him. So he lands where she wanted him, deciding the goddess must be the moon herself, a way for doubtful humans to believe with certainty. He bows in the corridor and thanks her from the bottom of his heart. If he's grateful, she says, they should pray together. Behind him, her eyes go red. He's timed it well, because plenty have already gathered. The cathedral is packed, row after row, kneeling under the stained glass. She steps to the front, tells them it's time to pray, and names what they're praying to. Not Sharona the Great Moon. Sister Utia Blutia, white veil, rosary at her lips, red eyes half-lidded and smiling. A whole holy kingdom is being pointed, very quietly, at something that isn't its goddess. Every prayer in that room goes to a moon she introduced them to. Meanwhile, the man who just ruled Faith out keeps getting stronger anyway. He still hasn't worked out who's been praying for him. Alan's at his desk with this month's letters, and there's nothing special in them. Everyone's living a good life, which was the entire point, and he says it like a man reading his own eulogy. Inner peace. Then he clocks that Utia still writes every month no matter what. 5 kids raised, exactly 1 acknowledges the work. He's fine. Then the door bangs open, and Evan nearly launches him out of the chair. The Information Guild came back, starting with the one Alan asked about. Radon is a pirate now. Alan's head produces 3 question marks and a very cheerful old man in a straw hat. Evan opens with the 2 pulling the most rumors, Seolrang and Deus. Seolrang is 32 wins into the 100-fight streak that makes her a Baba Yaga. Sounds modest until you hear the record holder, the Lion King, at 41. And the Lion King is a monster who briefly joined the player's party in the game. So the kid who likes games with her friends is about to pass the top of the colony. Deus is worse. His order just executed one of the 8 barbarian chiefs, Kurga of the Snowfield. That's the leader of the ones who ritually turn themselves into monsters. In the game, Alan had to wipe those barbarians out and kill their tribal god, Ultalrus, who only shows once the 5 sins unite. So he'll never meet it. Deus now rates level with Reinhardt, the first sword. Renee opened an appraisal shop under her own name, imprinting engravings that upgrade artifacts. So, the main point, did Radon really become a pirate? 7 archipelagos sit off the coast of Raxus where the great pirates live. Radan is captain of the first one, the biggest one. Alan hits the floor. He'd been sending that kid money for years, for a proud, ordinary life. The logic was clean. Rare sea godkin, moves underwater, and the sea off Rahaz is packed with old-era relics. So the recommendation was treasure hunter, respectable, with a future. A great pirates captain is basically lord of the island now. Alan wants to know how he took the chair off a superhuman who has never lost a naval battle. His guess, Radon salvaged the real gems from the wrecks, then geared up until the chair was takeable. Now he knows how it feels to have a pirate son. Cut to Rahaz, the giant maritime city, and past its coast, the 7 pirate paradises. On a deck, a sword lies snapped into pieces. It belonged to the former captain, the one holding the Heavenly King's protection through wealth. And here's the man who beat him. White hair, sunset, delighted. Someone asks what the Great Moon even is, and he doesn't know, and never cared to. At first, he was just grateful, back when he was meant to die as a vivisection slave, and instead met Utia and woke his ability up. It felt more like taking Utia's orders while he worked as the Blue Moon. So a direct order from the Great Moon himself sits wrong, and treasure hunting turns his stomach. He has a revenge to start. His clan lived on an island nobody knew existed, until something massacred all of them. On the continent they barely escaped to, hunters killed his exhausted parents and sold him. So he'll at least make it look like he's obeying. He's on a dark island in a cloak when something booms across the water. A festival, lanterns and dancers and a woman lighting a cigar off a spark. Only the chosen great pirate receives the Heavenly King's protection through wealth. Long live the captains of the 7 archipelagos. And that's where he finds them. The crowd screaming for someone called the Red Slayer. The ones who killed his parents finally came into power. Except the Heavenly King is a lie somebody spreads on purpose. That protection only comes through a sacred ritual using parts of a sea godkin's body, which is what the sea god Clyad grants. And every captain of the 7 archipelagos is wielding it. Fireworks go up, the pirates laugh, and he says it flat. Those hunters split his parents' bodies into 7. 7 captains, each carrying a piece of his mother and his father. He's already sitting in one of those 7 chairs. And the man who put him there still thinks he paid for a quiet treasure hunter. Fireworks over the harbor, and the white-haired guy watching them isn't celebrating. He's counting. Somebody sent him a letter that knew things he's never said out loud. So his first question isn't what now, it's how does he know? The way he reads it, the Great Moon arranged this window to keep a promise. An opening for revenge, gift-wrapped. The men he wants aren't men. They're superhumans running on the power of the sea god. He watches one of them light a pour of liquor in midair. So if all of it was arranged, the thing around his neck was arranged too. He lifts it into the moonlight, a gold sphere with a compass face burning inside. Never a souvenir. The Great Moon laid the foundation of this revenge, then handed him the frame. Then he goes over a cliff into reef water. He sinks past the light, down where the wrecks are. They're the spectacles of Amrita, and they pick out relics buried in the seafloor. What he hauls up closes the exact gap he had. Raw force. He surfaces with a chest and a grin that isn't entirely stable. Barefoot on the sand, he decides just being grateful was the stupid part. The Great Moon didn't only put the target in front of him, he handed over the power to finish it. So the order in that letter reads completely differently now. Carry out the revenge and take the 7 archipelagos while he's at it. That's not a favor, that's a job. And a memory rides in with it, a white-haired girl telling him everything is for the Great Moon. He shrugged at that sentence once, and he isn't shrugging now. It's carved into him. Cut forward 3 months, and the heat has broken. Autumn in Asteria means the grand social gathering, and Alan has to attend. The Krild and Edorn families fold into his caravan so bandits don't try anything. By evening, he's learned the bandits were never the problem. The nobles are. A count asks why a man of his rank travels with exactly 1 escort. Another guesses his finances are wrecked because he got the title by accident. Then they laugh in his face, full volume, heads back. Alan would rather they trash him behind his back like normal people. Palatio's authority was built on the underworld of the East, and he let all of it go. So that chair sits vacant with small fry circling it. The rumor has him demoted from mastermind of the county to lucky man-child. One noble offers, smiling, to lend him money. Then it clicks. These two families spent years as Palatio errand boys. They got stepped on, and now they're venting at the one man who never stepped on them. Which is when Evan wanders up holding roasted corn. He says he got it from the kitchen, as if a banquet isn't happening right there. Alan takes one look and forgets the nobles exist. The insults keep coming and start to rhyme. His review of the corn, excellent, would be better with butter. And then the story leaves him and goes north. Endless cold gray light, nothing alive in frame. A body face down in the snow, then a second. A huge tattooed man drags himself upright, cursing the Caliburn Knights for knowing nothing about honor. He's the Great Klecken, one of 8 barbarian chiefs, and among battle worshippers that's the ceiling. A knight of Caliburn asked him for an honorable duel. It was bait, and he took it. Now he's face down with swords planted around him. A voice asks what became of Kurga, of the snowfield. He answers that his fate is shameful, so shameful he can't close his eyes at death. The voice calls him brother. Then it tells him to say its name, the great name his people worship. The snow stops falling and starts spiraling upward. He gets one syllable out. He calls on Ultulrus, the great god, and calls the name honorable. Light comes down through the blizzard, and something with long, pale hair stands inside it. The god says yes. And that grin promises to grant this dying man exactly what he wants. Autumn's in the mountains, and a convoy of noble carriages is grinding toward the year's biggest social gathering. Every family with a name is going. The nobles riding near him have mocked him the whole trip, and he ignores every word. Camp by the river, and he's in the shallows landing a fish somebody calls a great catch. Days score, 1 for the man who said nothing. 2 of those nobles are still fuming, he wouldn't even look at them. 1 checks his artifact and asks about the extra escort troops. Then the talk turns ugly. The rumor's true, they say, so they can stop tiptoeing around Palatio's moods and move on the underworld. They aren't going to a party, they're going to carve up the criminal empire the shadow leader supposedly runs. One says once they own the under, they should send him a little gift. The other tells him he has a wonderful personality. Something cuts the laughing off mid-breath. A scream rips out of the tree line, and every escort has steel out. Somebody yells, monsters. The mages call for light first, because you can't kill what you can't see. The flare goes up, it lights goblins, and half the escorts relax on the spot. Goblins are the bottom rung here. Forest trash a knight kills without changing his grip. The problem is the count. Every man on watch outside the camp is already dead, and nobody heard it happen. Then the light hits one square, and the escorts stop moving. It's purple, a head taller than any goblin they've fought, and the veterans never seen the breed. Then someone clocks the detail that matters. They've got mana. Strength, speed, durability, none of it matches the numbers in anybody's head. The line breaks seconds later. They come over the wagons, and that's when magic starts landing from a direction nobody's watching. Enhancement first. Then compression. Then a vacuum that lifts a whole cluster off the ground. Then a return to the origins that washes the tree line white. A knight asks who the other mage in their ranks is. There is no other mage in their ranks. There's a third son who couldn't hold a sword a year ago, spending everything he has. He tells them to quit gawking and get ready, and the counterattack forms off his spells. Swords finally get to work. The purple things come apart one line of steel at a time, and the sun comes up on the pile. Somebody says it's over, and the whole camp starts asking who that man was. The answer is sitting off to the side, hollowed out. He gets 3 or 4 castings a day, and he burned all of them before the fight was half done. After that, he was an ordinary person with an empty pool standing in a monster wave. Evan checks him for wounds and gets told he's fine. He is not fine. He admits that losing the ability to protect himself is the most frightening thing this world has done to him, and moving in a group is why he is breathing. Then he looks at the thing he's actually scared of. One of those monsters was carrying an amethyst. The size, the color, the mana, the broken stat line that's not a new variant, that's divine descent. It's the mark monsters carry when an outer god is preparing to come through, and it makes them stronger. Manageable lore, except for the timing. Outer gods don't touch this land until the 5 deadly sins have descended and the world's laws have collapsed. That's the end of the story, not the middle. And the children he's been quietly feeding haven't awakened into anything yet. Not one. So the apocalypse moved its date up, and he has no idea what moved it. First thing on arrival, he's collecting information, because at this speed he doesn't survive the near future. Spires come up over the red leaves, and every powerful family on the continent walks in at once. After all that, the great social gathering begins, and he's walking in beside the same men who spent 2 nights planning how to take his territory apart. We're in a ballroom where everything is gold, because the point is, Duke Rhoda Grey, proving he can afford it. Alan figures you could lift a piece off the wall and nobody would notice. He's decided he's talking to 0 nobles tonight. Then one stammers his way over. Then all of them. They're offering the best meat off their land, a tray of gold, 5 minutes of his time. He doesn't know these people. His face does what confused faces do, and the nobles read a death sentence. Someone whispers that it's the Count's expression, and the cluster hits full emergency. Rewind a day, to the field after the goblins. 2 nobles on a ridge saw something in that fight and haven't stopped shaking. So they drag off Baron Almond's mage, hired purely to prove he could afford one. They ask her to confirm it was second circle work. She says whatever that was sits well above her own ceiling. And the story writes itself. Inherited a county on luck, sure. He was hiding strength that doesn't need escorts. Cold, cruel, real face finally showing. The plan was to buy their way out with bribes. In the ballroom, they downgrade to the floor. Alan is looking at 2 grown men on their knees with no idea what they think he did. So he clears his throat, allows that he's usually merciful, and says a line's been crossed. He'll handle it personally. Inside, he's noting he has no power to back any of it, and doing it anyway. Those 2 are already drafting obituaries. Back at the party, with Evan off at the Information Guild, Alan hunts gossip. 2 nobles in a corner, talking quietly. He pushes Mana into his hearing and leans in. Duke Altia and Count Zenonia are building a faction. He files it, bites an egg tart, and decides the tart is bigger news. Then one says the head of that faction isn't either of them. The tart stops halfway to his mouth. Count Palazzo. He sprays his drink across the floor. He's met Altia once, years ago, and the current Count Zenonia never. He's the head of nothing. And while he's working out how a rumor grows legs, somebody wants a word. Carmen, 3rd son of Duke Camelon, of the Ashutalon Kingdom, all ringlets and rouge. He's heard Alan lucked into a county and wants the trick. Alan observes, loud enough, that it's impressive when a twisted donut learns to talk. Carmen's head comes off, and a mustached man behind Alan asks if he's mocking a noble of Asteria. Carmine's face changes because bullying this one was supposed to be free. Rewind his afternoon. He came a long way to marry Rhodagray's youngest daughter, being a man no woman refuses. He meets the daughters, suggests one lose weight, rates the other's nose too large. The marriage gets canceled. He does not know why. So he hunts for the least connected noble in the room. He picks the one standing with the 3 men who run the country. Duke Rotegre, the noble faction. Marquis Mardanio, the royalists. Count Palin, center of the moderates. They ask, very calmly, whether Ashutalon looks down on Asteria now. Carmen apologizes, is told to say something other than sorry, and has nothing. He sobs out a plea and runs. Someone asks if Alan's all right, and he says yes while admitting this room scares him. Everyone else takes that as confirmation. Alan decides he should probably tell them it's all baseless. Then a noble offers him an artifact that holds mana. Then a second gift. Then a third. Alan says nothing and leaves with 2 artifacts and 5 mana potions. At dawn, in Rhodagray's annex, a woman in a black veiled hat asks how it went. Mardanio tells her the gift was accepted. A light gift between nobles is a greeting. An artifact is a man asking into a faction. He took it, so he's in. Duchess Altia welcomes Mardanio, says they officially share a purpose now, and smiles. The man with no powers just got drafted to head a conspiracy he learned about by eavesdropping. A woman in a wide black hat sits in the dark, glad everyone at her table wants the same thing. She asks how the others answered, and every one of them said yes. All of them. Duke Altiavind never lets anyone close, so the visit stayed quiet, the guest list got hand-picked, and the invitations got greased with sincere bribes. The rumors go out like weather. An old noble with a heavy mustache decides this is politics moving, and he won't miss it. Then, a hooded figure by firelight says it's finally time to move. Nothing about that is comforting. Day 4 of the banquet, and this guy notices his pile of loot keeps growing. A man with a wine glass fawns over him, because half the room thinks he's tied to Altia and Zenobia. He's ready to run with the gifts. Back home, the kids swarm him before the doors shut, one mid-snack and hiccuping. Then Evan's report kills the room in one line. An outer god has appeared. The North, he asks, and Evan confirms Caliburn, with old literature tying the amethyst to the thing. The other favor came back too. The person he's hunting sits in a certain village. So they ride for Caliburn, and the village is on the way. Evan asks why now, and gets told he'll explain in the carriage. Pack it up, they leave tonight. Then the door shuts, and the act drops off his face. Outer gods aren't a monster of the week, they sit on the same shelf as the 5 deadly sins. And when one descends, nobody learns which one, or when. He knew it was coming, just not this fast. Petals fall, the ground cracks, the skyline burns, the allied kingdoms come apart. He did think of a plan, but it stays buried for months while the stardust runs, and that whole window it can't wield divine power at full strength. Waiting is the smart play, and he's going anyway. Then his mind wanders somewhere smaller. What would that kid even like? A week later, they're on the road, and the Knights push their northern schedule back 2 weeks. Then he spots a boy in the street who stands out badly. Blue hair, shorts, grin the size of the town. That's Eleven, the protagonist of the game he's living inside. Exactly like his illustration, except our guy double-checks that this one's a boy. The kid asks if he knows him, then says he just wanted to welcome a stranger. Different world, same rules, and this one still ends up strong and famous. So he hands the kid something, and Eleven's brain reboots when he clocks its gold. Then Evan opens a case, and the presents start hitting the street. All of it his. It's an investment. Every early game item that helps a protagonist grow, bought and delivered. You're going to be huge later, so grow up fast and go kill the outer god for me. He ruffles the kid's hair and calls that good enough treatment. Walking off, he tosses back a late introduction, Count Palacio, the sponsor to thank when he makes it. Eleven throws a hand at the sky and shouts he'll remember this. Evan asks if the kid was always that cheerful. That part bugs him too, because the game was a dark fantasy, and that boy was not sunshine. Evan asks if leaving without a real conversation was wise, but there's no time, so the kid got an auto-grind instruction and a sponsor's name. But Evan clocked something. That child was talented like the other ones, mana thick enough to feel, plain clothes hiding artifacts. In the original story, he was an average boy until his adventure started. So that's another butterfly effect. Another gap between this world and the game. He decides he doesn't care, because a stronger protagonist protects his sweet life plan. Then something snags him kind personality, and he turns to Evan and starts a sentence about Deus. Would that boy ever actually want to see him? Because he's been paying for that orphanage this whole time and has never had the nerve to walk inside. 10 days of road, and the carriage is finally in the queue at the Capitol gate. Evan hops down to clear their identities, and Alan sprawls across the seat like the hard part's over. Then Evan's back with a face on, and the report is, we have a problem. They've been pulled out of the line and told to stand aside. Rewind 10 days. They're rolling toward Kirtham, capital of Caliburn, through the northern gate. Every stop on that tour was him stockpiling for the fight against the outer god. He's also carrying gifts, including a small red pendant he's weirdly nervous about Deus liking. The problem is the knight waiting on the other side, asking if he's Count Palacio. The guy announces himself as Viren, the Fourth Sword, direct disciple of Fiola the Master Knight. Alan's brain snags on the name Fiola. Viren snags on Alan not being impressed. So what, he asks. Viran asks what the problem is with him bringing a squad, then mentions a friend in Ashadalon who's owed a debt. Alan gets there instantly and just says the name Carmine. Cut to a crystal ball and a pink-haired lunatic shrieking that Alan embarrassed him in front of everyone. The bastard's heading to Caliburn, he says, so cripple him. Payment is more abyssal entity to push Viren's skills up a rung. Viren's honest read is beautiful. He already took the goods, so he should at least look like he cares. Which is how we get an empty road, knights fanned across it, and a cover story about Alan picking a fight and running. Evan's sword is out when Viren offers the alternative hand over everything expensive in the carriage. He's done his homework too, and Asteria barely registers in the alliance. Nobody's coming. Alan's hand starts crackling white. The blade comes down anyway, and Viren's last calm thought is that his master cleans up messes. The swing never lands, because something has the fourth sword by the throat in midair. A voice asks what he thinks he's doing, then finishes the question to my benefactor. There's one thing Viran never checked. Count Palacio is the benefactor of Deus Macalian, who took Kurga of Snowfield in a duel and came out a hero with a new name, Swordless. Viren gets one syllable out and it's Deus's title. Deus turns to the entire squad and says that if anyone moves an inch, they can imagine the rest. Not one of Fiola's knights moves. What follows is less a fight than routine maintenance. Halfway through, a knight works out who's holding him, and the name goes down the line. Deus tells him to be thankful for the circumstances that stop him killing him here. Off to the side, Alan says out loud that that's a good beating. Then it catches up with him, did that guy just call him his benefactor? As far as Alan knew, the kid forgot he existed. Every letter went unanswered. Now he's got both hands on his chest, misting over, being rewarded for raising his son. Deus is still working, leaning over the bleeding knight to ask sweetly who his sponsor is. Evan, deadpan at his shoulder, points out that his son is beating the hell out of a person. Alan says he didn't hear that. What he heard was a son standing up for a father mistreated in a foreign country. Even Evan cracks and asks whether this is going a bit far. Then Deus stands, and the armor comes with him black, violet, 3 times the size of a man. Standing in its shadow, Alan remembers what this thing is supposed to grow into, one of the 5 deadly sins. The Caliburn Knights are still frozen when that armor turns and drops to one knee in the dirt. In front of all of them, Deus asks Alan for permission to guide him. So, the capital of the Knight Nation now knows a foreign count owns the hero called Swordless. And Carmen's grudge is still unpaid, and Fiola, whose disciple is face down on that road, hasn't said a word. Snowfield at sunrise, and a night order is screaming itself hoarse. Swords up, and the captain calls everyone back to the forward base. And he refuses to be outdone by the man who just made Master Knight. Caliburn and the barbarians fight honorable wars, so he offered a chief a duel, then ambushed him with an infiltration force. The chief gets one word out with a blade through him. Despicable. The camp burns, and the report writes itself. One of the 8 chiefs, Kulkan the Great, clan annihilated. Meet Delman, third sword of Caliburn, captain of the Crimson Flame. He needed a headline, because somebody else already took Kurga of the Snowfield. One loose end, Kulkan's body went missing during the fighting. He waves it off, because the poison finishes whatever the ambush missed. He walks home, and a shape is standing on the ice ahead. Then the forward base, his knights spread across it, not moving. Something out there says his name. Kulkan should be dead twice over, and it wants to know why he defiled a sacred duel. This is the terror that eats a man who severs hundreds of lives per swing. He gets there a second late. That isn't Kulkan. He demands to know what it is. It tells him to answer first. So, we get the ambush again, Delman sneering that trusting the word duel on a battlefield was the chief's own mistake. It says he's climbed to a high caliber, for a human, and offers one last chance. Duel me. Delman's answer is to order the whole order into battle, which files him under 3 words. A mortal without honor. So it will not be granting him an honorable death. What comes next isn't a fight. A gray-blue fist, blood on ice, and screaming that does not stop. Delman manages to ask what the hell it is, then he's down. The things crawling through the snow are his own knights, dead and awake, begging to die. A gray hand rises and claims every savage in the place. The ice shatters, the field turns red, and the corpses stand up in ranks. Welcome to the bloody Colosseum, made from the dead who were denied their deaths. Ultulrus, father of duels, wishes to bestow an honorable death on him personally. The chief, who should be a corpse, points, half his body gray, one eye red. Prove you aren't savages. Through a duel, blue sky, and a knight carries a bloodied survivor out of all that. Cut to Caliburn, where a man in a torn purple cloak folds at the waist for his guest. The yard goes silent, because the swordless just bowed his head. The ambitions of Deus Macalian the swordless run as high as the heavens. He beat the second prince bloody for harassing his sister. No punishment. He's polite to the king and nobody else. So the whole road is asking out loud, who is Count Palacio? A carriage stands open, and Evan notes this will catch attention. Deus tells the count to go ahead and says he'll follow behind. Gates, spires, and the boy he bought out of a slave market lives here. Talk about success. They walk it in silence, and Alan starts wondering if he's the problem. So he stops him at the door and gets to the point. A request. Deus turns the word over like a foreign object. A request, not an order. Then he sits his guest in the highest chair, and Alan can't work out why the host isn't in it. He likes it anyway, because it feels like being treated as a father. He clears his throat. 2 requests, both a burden. First, he's heading north, and he'd like company. Deus answers before the sentence is finished. Gladly, Alan's throne, until Deus mentions he was already setting out north. The second one is harder. Could he borrow the Ring of the Mad One out of Caliburn's treasury? A plain silver band on red velvet, in another kingdom's vault. So, a foreign treasury's relic named after a madman and a road north. North is where something just built an arena out of a night order. We open in Deus's house, where a subordinate reports back from an escort run. Down the hall, a woman mentions a distinguished guest, and a lady Siley. Orders delay the shadeless in the north a week, and an aide asks why. The reason is coming up the road. A letter, purple manna, and a servant announcing the Count of Palacio of the Asteria Kingdom. Deus reacts like the floor moved. Cut to a table, where Alan asks for the Ring of the Mad One from Caliburn's treasury. It puts him in debt to a royal family, and he asks anyway, because his plan needs it. Deus doesn't let him finish. He's already saying yes, and now the atmosphere needs improving. The doors open on a hall, packed wall to wall with wrapped boxes. That's not a gift. That's inventory. Deus singles out one dark box covered in stars, chosen after thorough consideration. Alan thanks him and says he'll open it alone later, since tearing in here would be rude. Deus spirals. The man hates his gifts, he's just some foreign count, or is that respect? The panel goes pink and he's demanding to know who dares harm his benefactor. Nobody harmed anybody. Deus announces that he'll bring the ring right now, which is a problem, since that treasury normally takes a week to move. He asks if he should start immediately, and Alan tells him not to go that far. Then, a girl in a pink dress comes barreling down the corridor, yelling for her brother. This is Siley, the sister Alan sent Evan to save. Back in the game, he only got a glimpse of her death. In person, she looks exactly like Deus. She says she's heard whose order pulled her out. Alan brushes it off a dead sister, turns Deus into a killing machine. She thanks him anyway. Siley goes to introduce Alan properly, and the word she lands on is Mr. Alan knew Deus had a hole where family should be, but now he's telling the Mr. to stop talking to her. That's when the coin drops. The gifts, the ring, all of it, because he saved Siley. He wonders if there's anything the guy wouldn't do for him now. Someone asks if he's Count Palacio, and the answer fills the panel. He stays at the mansion a while, and the ring arrives. Alan, mid-drink, points out it's been 1 day. A servant says Deus made a scene at the palace, and when the second prince nitpicked, Deus slapped him. A few times. 3 days of prep later, Alan rides north with the solar eclipse nights. 2 weeks on, a carriage in the snow reaches the outpost on Caliburn's northern border. The news there is all bad. Bodies in the red, a ghost-lit shape, and a war council screaming about retreat. Nobody wants to show their backs to the barbarians. The other side says the soldiers are wounded and the first sword is in seclusion, so there's no winning. A blue-haired officer tells them to cool their heads. Leaning on the table is Fiola, 4th Sword of Caliburn and captain of the Preservation Order. Outside, a village lies buried under snow, with bodies in it. An outer god is sweeping their bases with undead. The 3rd sword, Delman, died at the eastern base. The 2nd sword, Kiriana, is severely wounded at the western one, and Alan says he can already see it from here. A strange red over the front, visible only to eyes open to mana. A chilling landscape. He starts thinking retreat might be the right call. Then he clocks smoke, coals, embers, and the words diffraction and condense. He's running magic drills on potatoes, and nobody knows where he got them. Elsewhere, a woman snaps that the treatment is done, and she's only here to investigate, as tents press in. She turns to clear someone out of her path, halfway through telling him to move. Then she sees his face and stops dead. Whoever this blue-haired investigator is, she knows Alan on sight, and all she can ask is why he's here. We open on a light blue-haired girl flinching back mid-word. Cut to Alan, hand near his face, smirking. Then we're on a snowfield of purple-cloaked mages, greeting the vice tower master the tower sent. Alan leads with the awkward part. County finances are thin, so payment might run late. She waves it off, says it's her duty, and 1 gold should cover it. Her own people gasp, because the vice tower master is smiling, and they call that crazy. Then red aura floods the frame, and 2 at a window ask if the other felt it. Alan's face goes dark, and someone calls it, it's an attack. The snowfield turns into a melee, dozens charging the camp, orders simple, attack or die. Steel meets steel, and a blonde fighter takes a hit and goes down. That's when the vice tower master earns her 1 gold. Icicle. Ice erupts across the field and freezes attackers standing up, rows at a time. Purple magic answers, dark and heavy, and someone says it's coming. Red lightning splits the sky, and the caption calls it a despair of overwhelming dominance. It calls the whole battle barbarism, and says not to profane the sins of the dishonored. Full body reveal. Cloaked, teal hair, lit from the inside. A blade built on extreme speed swings, and the speed does nothing. To anyone who's abandoned honor, it says, an honorable death won't be granted. A defender drops, and someone screams for Lord Fiola. So Alan, standing among his own fallen, calls on the great god of duels, Ultilis. In accordance with the oath of Colunius, he gives his name and swears to uphold it. Then he demands the duel of Babylonia, and the thing laughs at him. It knows the oath of our era, calls it strange, welcomes it anyway. A gold plate unfolds in the air, and something teal-skinned with prayer beads answers. Ultilis accepts the holy duel under the great oath. The second it's real, Alan's red falls apart. The pressure alone nearly folds him. The enemy spells it out. He didn't think it was this close to becoming a living god. Outer gods get stronger as they near descent, and a finished one matches the 5 deadly sins. That's not a boss on the field. It's a sin, halfway through the door. Without the potion of extraordinariness, he'd be out cold, and this window, before it fully wakes, is his last. Then the caption drops the rule that changes the fight. This duel, from the forgotten era of gods, is turn-based. Rule 1. The challenge strikes first, so the god swings and promises him the song of destruction. Everyone's yelling at each other to scatter, and Alan tells them to wait. Rule 2. The defender can't move on their turn, and nobody outside may interfere. Ultilis loves that, calling him one who knows honor. Rule 3. Offense and defense alternate, round after round. Alan, holding a small gold vial, says it. As defender, this is his turn. A simple defense is worth nothing here, so he stacks it. Fixation, condense, enchantment, in-depth. He burns every drop of mana he has today on one defense. Then it lands. The beam swallows the frame, whites out the page. The shockwave strips the snow bare. The mountain behind him comes apart. Dust. The light blue-haired girl, next to a dark-haired man, asks if he survived that. A red circle still burns into the ground, a cloaked shape inside it. Close on Alan's face, bloodied, eyes open, alive. She probably already knows, he says. One vial is the potion of extraordinariness, the other the potion of bewitchment, which dulls the pain. A hooded figure asks if he really plans to use it. He checks the small gold vial. Not a scratch. Exactly as planned. Warm light, a beat, then his eyes. Then he says it. The conditions of hybris are fulfilled, and he invokes the restriction. Gold threads spool from both his hands as the page goes white. He ate a god's opening move on purpose to buy a turn, and the next one is his. This fight is turn-based, and it comes with its own separate rulebook. The thing grinning across the snow, prayer beads and all, demands Alan prove his honor in the great duel of Babylonia. That's the trap. Alan forced the duel on purpose, because rules are the only leash that fits an outer god. The god accepts. Cut back, and Alan's pouring a healing potion into himself, barely alive after that hit. The Ring of the Mad One only switches on for a user with 1 foot in the grave. Black lightning crawls up his hands, and a blue orb in his palm pours out smoke. The restriction is complete. In the game, the enhancement ran on a time limit instead of a turn. Out here, there's no timer. He opens the grimoire and stacks conditions. First restriction, cast in a land of extreme cold. Second, cast in a near-death state. Third, cast against a god. Then the fourth, and 2 enormous eyes open behind him. 1 red, 1 blue. Diffraction, focus, condense, death, and his whole face goes wrapped in lightning. What comes down is a column of white and purple light that swallows the field. The snow goes flat, and there's a face inside the blast. Ultimus is standing. His read was that this only counts if the god's gone in the first hit. But outer gods don't disappear just because a body part goes missing. Robe intact, grin intact, and the god tells him he's strong. Alan's bloodied and out of mana, asking whether this is hellfire. Then Ultimus tells him he's carrying on the will and already holds the class. And Ultimus starts to burn. He says the black and blue ones are worth watching, then admits he's lost the duel. He calls Alan the one who remembers the mad signs and the great forgotten god. His instruction, when the usurpers break their shackles, call his real name, not the epithet steeped in falsehood. Because the thing in that fire isn't a grinning old man, it's a golden, radiant giant. The Wicked One. Then he's gone, and Alan's alone with a ring of light at his feet. The dead get gathered, gravestones go up, and the camp finally goes quiet. On the ground where a god stood, there's a drop. The Vice Tower Master calls him a second circle. Alan says third, and gets agreed with instantly. He asks the mages what black and blue might mean, and 2 swear they saw nothing. Another thanks him for letting her go, which makes him feel like a villain. The drop is the Belt of the Forgotten One. Double damage dealt, double damage taken. He's never seen that phrase and wonders if Kimarin has the answer. Then Deus turns up in dark armor, reports the mage left without a proper goodbye, and starts drawing. Alan says there's no need, and notes the kids getting reckless. Deus reports the subjugation to the king at Kurthar, capital of Caliburn, and the expedition is over. Alan rides out buried in royal gifts, having spent every coin staying alive. Then Deus asks whether he could ever get strong like that. Alan has no idea what he means, and guesses the lightning looked cool. But the kid's sword talent is real, and the level he wants is only a matter of time. So Alan tells him yes, because his talent is blessed, which is when Deus asks why he gets favors instead of orders. Who orders their family around? Then he walks off and Deus's hand closes on nothing. Soldiers salute the carriage out, and the kid listens to it rattle away. Night in the castle, and he's eating alone at a table built for 20. He followed Alan to repay a kindness, and keeps ending up further in debt. Meanwhile, Alan's sobbing that the kid suspected an angle behind pure goodwill. He gets why people call parenting thankless work. Back at the table, Deus wishes he had magic talent like his patrons. Then he sits with the word Alan used. Family. He still doesn't know what will he's carrying, or what class a god says he holds. 3 months on the road, and our guy finally walks back through his own gate. 1 breath of home, then the bill. Backlogged paperwork taller than he is. He's so wrecked he walks face first into a door, thinking it was his bedroom. Rough landing. He swears he'll clear the backlog before resting, then takes the week off anyway, and calls peace and full plates happiness enough. He's practicing too, and a flick of his finger spins a snowflake from nothing. A week deep into doing nothing, the itch comes back and he opens the research. The Forgotten Great God, the Hand Sign Mysteries, the Authority Table, Black Thing, Blue Thing, the Wicked One, the One Who Carries the Will. He wants the terms Ultultus left behind pinned down, and past the names, he's got nothing. The Wicked One, he mutters, and that true name sounds like an Eastern god. Nobody here has ever watched an outer god just vanish like that, which drags him to the question he hates. Why show up at all, and what comes down next? Small mercy. An outer god announces itself before it descends. The 5 deadly sins don't. He wants to reach Kahara now and can't, because knowing where a place is doesn't get you there. The records put a holy hood there under the ancient god's sky. The explorers haven't found it, and going in first paints a target. Then somebody's shouting for the count. Evan comes in, clocks the whole room is freezing, and asks if that's his magic. It is. The report is good. A hidden city has turned up in Kolshi. Cut to a crystal orb, and a meeting he's very much not at. It's the Blue Moon's semi-annual agenda-wrapping fast because these never run past 10 minutes. Then someone mentions the Great Moon visited Kaloum and asks Deus what it was like up close. Deus, the one who never says anything, starts talking. He describes a whole room trembling while the Great Moon stepped out alone and called a duel. The more he turns it over, the surer he is that magic was prepared long before. 50 minutes have passed. Somebody gently suggests he's going a little long. Deus says the important part starts now. He gets to the instant death strike nobody could have predicted, and the Great Moon landing it anyway. Then the real attack was only just loading, and someone's begging Utia to stop him. Utia just smiles and says the Great Moon really is different from the rest. 2 hours later, the entire organization is face down. Deus apologizes for running long, says he'll see them in half a year, and admits he hasn't had this much fun in ages. That one set the Blue Moon record at roughly 3 hours. Back home, the Count opens a door onto presents. One, a deep-floor labyrinth artifact worth a mansion. Half of it is from nobles he's never heard of, and the letters are worse than the boxes. The word is out on him. A week later, they're still arriving. A month later, they are still arriving, and he's muttering about sending the excess back. By early summer, the flood slows, which is when Teria calls the Grand Council. And he's sprinting, convinced he's late to his first one. He isn't. Inside, he reads the room. Royalists left, noble faction right, so the middle has to be neutral. He takes the back row instead, because of course he does. 2 nobles spot him and can't work out when he even got in. He decides the very back might have offended someone and slides to the middle, every eye following. He walks down the steps, and the row he lands in simply evaporates. Now he's alone in the front line, and the man beside him explains, nobody sits level with a faction head. The head of a what? The council opens by announcing the new Cal faction has voting rights. He is thinking about going home. Then they name its representative, and the name is Count Palacio. He's never heard of the Cal faction, and he's the only one in the room confused. 2 women down the row stare at him, and a noble mutters this alliance was supposed to break by now. Then the chair asks the Count for a few words as representative, and it lands the leader of the brand new shadow faction is him. Snow, wind, and a cloaked figure in a white nowhere watching something we can't see. Whatever it is, he calls it interesting and wonders how far this guy will go. Cut to a ballroom where every noble present is applauding Alan for founding the Cal faction. He is the head of it. He didn't found it. He asks if that name came off a light novel, and the host takes his silence as a yes. Somebody toasts him as tonight's protagonist, and he starts praying he's only the figurehead. A red-haired noblewoman asks how the evening turned out, and he says exactly as she wanted. The girl beside her is glad she can finally repay him for saving her life. He doesn't remember saving anybody. Apparently, he ordered an alliance between 2 houses, and the faction grew from instructions sent through Zenobia. Nobles who complained got folded in, then mailed presents to their new head. He swears he never told one person to do any of it. What he actually sent was an apology letter. One clumsy letter to Kalaya, sorry if he came off cold, he's blunt and bad with words. His read, this never gets fixed, because people who work from the shadows have peculiar taste. One reply was a dark red page telling him to go die. So the plan is hold the seat a while, then retire before anyone notices. Asked what he does from here, he stalls, hunting for the coolest possible sentence. He says he'll start by sweeping up the underworld. Then he claims business elsewhere and walks, before anyone can ask a follow-up. Outside, he asks Evan if he really mailed that letter, and Evan says yes, he thinks. He tells Evan not to look back. They're leaving for the colony now. Inside, the redhead mentions she took her own underworld years ago, repeating his line like she's tasting it. On a rooftop over the city, someone says they found Count Palacio. Killing him here would be easy. The problem is the Master Knight, who never leaves his side, and a rule against making overwhelming enemies. One figures the leader would allow this one. Ashtalon Kingdom, Duke Comelon's mansion. A man greets his visitor as the agent, and says he'd know his host, who is tied to the Seeker. The agents are an assassin order of the Federation Kingdom, all of them at Swordmaster level. Their rule on a job is no witnesses, and a guard learns it. The client tells him he's strong, as expected, then names the target. He calls himself the Tyrant of Ashtalon and expects no refusal, not even for royalty. If payment is right, there's no failure, but the agent doubts this lord can cover it. The price is 4 abyss entities, not orbs. Entities, which Duke Comelon leaks onto the black market a few at a time. Carmen hands them over, then asks if Palacio thought he'd live in peace after looking down on him. Later, the agent carries a black cube to the Seeker and asks if this is a problem. The Seeker is Duke Comelon, who now knows what his useless son was plotting with those stolen entities. The reward is tempting, but the leader's order is to never oppose a ducal house. Comelon says he heard nothing, and tells him to get lost. In another room, an ambassador reports the Cal faction is getting massive, and Comelon says handling it himself would have been a bother. Great timing. On a moonlit road, Alan's carriage rolls for the colony, and the assassin drops out of the dark, already calling the entity his. Steel flashes, something bursts against the night, and the moon goes black behind a falling figure. Off the road, a gloved hand clamps over a blue-haired boy's mouth, telling him to save his energy. The boy stands up. One line of light, one cut, and the agent's face opens. The kid stands over a swordmaster, blade out, telling him he'd still be breathing if his target hadn't been the Count. We're deep in the desert now, sand and everything, and Alan is melting. He's riding with a merchant caravan, the only sane way across routes you don't know. Evan asks if he's practicing his magic. Alan says misfiring a spell in a packed caravan is a disaster with witnesses. Then he feels the eyes on him again. There's a red-haired girl across the carriage glaring holes in his head, and she asks if peeping is his hobby. This is Leanne Aguilaris, daughter of the Red Magic Tower Master and a Fourth Circle mage. He says he has no such hobbies. She calls that playing dumb. She's been lied to her whole life by people who wanted something from her father, so she hates liars, mages, most of all. Which brings us to Count Palacio, a man she reckons barely has the mana for Second Circle, who supposedly stopped an outer god and bankrolls the Master Knight. Then, the caravan gets hit. Riders come out of the dunes with chains and blades, the guards drop, and Leanne's casting doesn't stop them swarming her. The symbol on their gear belongs to the Bloody Sand Bandits. Their leader can't believe his luck. The Tower Master's daughter, riding this caravan, is the jackpot. And Alan? Alan is face down in the sand, hyperventilating, because a ring of armed men is what locks his lungs. Then the air goes cold. Not desert night cold, frost in your lashes cold, snow falling over a dune sea, and his breathing steadies. Leanne looks up and finds the fraud she's been sneering at standing in it. Frigid cold goes off, then he welds a second array into it, then a third. Composite magic, different array structures chained together, and every extra link tanks the success rate. She knows that math cold, fifth circle, minimum, flash, cryostasis, annihilation. The dunes go white, the leader drops, and bandit crews scatter the second the top of the chain breaks. Alan offers the rest one chance to get lost, and they take it screaming. By nightfall, the merchants are pouring drinks and offering him premium jerky. In his head, he's doing the accounting, because none of that was raw power. His magic gets a bonus in extreme cold, so he built the cold himself. Spatial and maintenance magic layered until the desert thought it was the north. Cast near death, reduced. Cast facing a god, reduced. The great god of duels, Ultulrus, specifically, which trims his lifetime penalties to 3. The catch is the clock, because 3 chain spells hold barely a minute. Then Leanne comes over, stammering, apologizes for misreading him, and asks to compare notes, if that isn't too rude. Alan is thrown by the pivot after weeks of her picking fights. She forgives him on the grounds that she is magnanimous, which is a very Fourth Circle way of saying sorry. So the rest of the road is 2 mages arguing about array structures while Evan snores between them. They reach the desert nation of Colony, and she asks whether he'll be at the Academy conference. He isn't affiliated with any tower, so she offers to walk him in as the Red Magic Tower's representative. He accepts on the spot. Evan has the carriage arranged and the luggage handled. Then the road detonates. Gold lightning rips down the street, bodies go into the air, and Evan puts himself between it and Alan. Out of the light walks a blonde girl who shouts hello and calls him her benefactor. Seal rang. The Golden Flash, one of only 4 Baba Yagas in Colony. She's annoyed he didn't warn her, since the city's crawling with heat-crazed thugs she just flattened for eyeing his luggage. She's been waiting forever since his letter arrived, and she is done waiting. Half the street is staring at the man the mad dog of Colony treats like family. Alan's only question, as she hauls him off by the arm, is whether those men are still breathing. He's Third Circle now, 5 D-rank casts a day, up from 1, which is far more magic than he had, and nowhere near enough for wherever she's dragging him. The doors swing open on a hall the size of a town square, and every beastkin inside is yelling that the boss is back. She asks Ralga, the blonde one with the wolf ears, whether anything happened while she was gone. Nothing did, and then he spots Alan and gushes that the boss waited at the entrance every day. She kicks him across the room. Alan says she runs her people well, and she says they're family, so she needs nobody else. Then she goes red and starts mumbling about family, about Utia. Alan, reading this completely wrong, notes that he and Utia aren't blood relatives either. Presents. A wall of them stacked to the ceiling, and Evan is already braced. Alan starts to argue they're not family, and she cuts him off, because this is what you owe a benefactor. Then she hands him a gauntlet burning gold, essence of the Golden Mane tribe, 20% crit, tied to the sin of pride. The item text wasn't decoration. He gets a room, a rest, and a warm moment about being good at raising kids, which is when he makes his mistake. He and Evan gripe about the heat, and one mentions offhand that they got jumped on the way in. The Blood Sand Bandits, apparently a regular hazard for caravans out here. Nothing serious, he'd just rather not meet them twice. Seolrang's face goes very, very flat. That night, the desert lights up gold. The camp doesn't get a battle. It gets weather. lightning falling on men who never see her arrive. She finds the last one standing and asks if he's the leader. He screams that he's the statesman Kalhara's younger brother, and under Kalhara's protection, her answer is that they touched her benefactor first, and besides, she doesn't want to get in trouble. The camp stops existing. By morning, the colony is asking how a whole bandit organization died overnight, and she's home calling herself a genius. She wants praise, and only praise. Alan files away exactly how much it matters that this one landed on his side. Across town, the Colosseum sand takes another body, and someone in the good seats says there are plenty of fools left. Ralga strolls into a lounge, laughing that a few hundred men thought they could take a Baba Yaga. The man on the couch already knows, and that man is Kalhara, one of only 4 barbarians in this colony, and the longest to hold the seat. Asked whether his little brother really ran those bandits, Kalhara says he started that rumor himself. Now he's got better, a dead brother, and a grievance the public will swallow. Ralga says walking in here means he's finally ready, and slides a case across the table. A gift from their father, the Seeker, he calls it, with real power in it for whoever takes it. Then the wolf ears go up, and Ralga admits this is an experiment. He's curious how long Kalhara lasts. 2 days later, they ride out under the guild's protection to the ancient ruins of Kahara. There's a light past the sand, and a city under it that shouldn't still be standing. Then a voice tells him that if he can hear these words, he should come. It's the central tower, the one place in the game nobody was ever allowed inside. He tells Evan to wait below. Up top, something with horns and one burning eye says he at least meets the minimum requirements. Alan almost says its true name out loud before he catches himself. It decides he's worth the risk because he carries the proper class, the standard this world judges people by. An outer god is coming down soon, and Alan is the one expected to deal with it. After that, it says they can have a real conversation. Magic here isn't a spell list, it's a phrase, and a phrase manifests your true nature. After the phrase comes the principle, the rule deciding how that manifestation unfolds. And it isn't magic until you recite the name. Which is exactly why the thing in the tower is about to hand him one proper piece. Somebody is finally teaching Alan the principle underneath magic, not just the words. One proper spell, built right. Then we cut to a sun-baked coast, where Seolrang taps her foot, wondering what's keeping her benefactor. Something did happen, just not to him. A shadow drops in behind her, grinning that he found her, and she's already turning, blade up. Kelman. She asks how he dares pull this outside the Colosseum, and he laughs at the word immoral, because she annihilated his little brother Speciphalis in that arena. Revenge, with a smile. The air goes gold. She screams at him not to touch her family, and the coastline lights up like a match. Kalman takes the full blast and keeps chuckling, because he expected it. She snarls back, asks what expectations he means, and blood goes up. Hers. A blade comes through her from behind, and the man holding it says he told her so. She turns, coughing, and it's Ralga, golden mane, same tribe, same grin she's always known. She asks if he betrayed her, then asks again, smaller, like she needs him to say no. He doesn't. In her memory, kids crowd around calling her the best, and she says, of course, they're family. In the days before the orphanage she's been rebuilding ever since. She wanted revenge on the black dragon that burned the first one down, and her people back. Descendants of the Beastkin King are loyal down to the bone. Not all of them. A woman snaps at Ralga to finish it, and he quits the stupid family act, lighting up with power he didn't have last week, multiplied several times by an abyssal entity. He chases her across the sand, calling her a rat, swearing the essence handed him an authority. For a stretch, the fight looks even, then Ralga is gritting his teeth, asking why he can't overpower her. Then 2 figures walk out of the heat haze, and somebody asks who that is. Her benefactor. Alan and Evan, walking into an ambush that was never about them. They have orders anyway, so the boy makes a fine hostage before he dies. Seolrang tries to move and her legs quit on her, and the woman explains cheerfully. Caminaceous poison, about an hour of nothing. Then Ralga leans in. Did the tribe gather around her to play family, or for the authority inside the golden mane essence she holds the keys to? He asks if she knows how it felt, watching someone lucky swing that much strength around. She says perhaps. She says but. What she has against it is gold light and people calling her family. He promises to show her how much everyone hates her, and every face she trusted steps forward. She asks if all of them betrayed her too. He tells her the essence belongs with someone more befitting, thanks her, and reaches. The sand freezes, and Ralga wants to know what that ice even is. Alan is already reading the black smoke coming off him. Abyssal entity. That thing isn't supposed to surface until the middle of the story he memorized. The old info window called it a road to godhood for whoever it deems suitable, and nobody knows what suitable means. Evan does the math, and the math is bad. Seolrang looks up at the man she was waiting for. He asks whether she can hold the line until his spell finishes. She says yes, because her family is waiting for her. She gets up on a poisoned body and goes back in swinging. Alan starts building. Frost. Form. He has a handful of words, a teacher's voice saying phrases, bend laws, and impossible abbreviations out of a legacy nobody remembers. Renown of a snowy mountain. Pen of the blind. Ralga sees the shape and howls, asking if that's supposed to be an ice spear. Alan gives him the true name instead, the one those fools forgot. Painted bed of ice crystals. The coastline disappears under it, claiming that essence needs several unbroken minutes of contact. Ralga does not have several minutes. The last thing we see is a small, golden-haired kid bouncing around him, calling him cool. Ralga laughs and promises to beat the daylights out of him one day. He was her family once, and somebody still has to dig him out from under all that ice. The ice is still coming apart when we drop in. A painted halberd of ice crystals comes down and the field goes white. The golden-maned girl is under it, blade up, snarling that nobody touches her benefactor. She takes the wall face first. Kalman isn't fighting for a win anymore. He wants control of the essence, so he can start himself over clean. Then he stops looking at her and looks past her at Alan. And Alan doesn't move. She screams for her benefactor, gets there, and something still lands. Alan is coughing. One word out of her, in red, and then a strike that ends the argument. Out in the wasteland, somebody asks if he's actually okay. He says he wasn't hurt badly, arm wrapped, still coughing. Powerful, he admits, just not enough for internal damage. He's stuck on something he was told about a father being an eyesore. What he does keep is the rule underneath it. An abyssal entity offers godhood and grants divinity to whoever suits. Then he turns to the kid because he can see her sinking. The enemy came for him because of her, she says, so it's her fault. He tells her she said she could block, so he stood still. She asks if he actually believed her. What she said, she protests, was closer to please block this. And he got hurt anyway. She's a golden mane, he's a human, and her family is her tribe. He doesn't need a reason to save family. That's when she remembers the letter telling him to hang in there, Dad. She says he's right, and that she made a mistake. So she fixes it. She proposes. Alan's brain returns a blank screen. Later, Kalman's atrocities run through the colony, and the verdict is coward. Same stretch, she gathers enough support to become the first Baba Yaga. Then she proposes again. There is no skip button out here. By his count, this is the 19th time. He says he thinks of her as family, and she hears an opening. Marriage would make them really family, and she swears she'll make him happy. He just wants sweet potatoes and a quiet, noble life. Then a carriage rolls in and the smile goes off her face. Her guild changed to match her ideals. Her kinsmen still raw over Ralga's betrayal. Her ideal family believes in each other when it's life or death. So she's going to build a guard that can protect her benefactor. The Information Guild reports nothing suspicious left but Ralga's men. Alan can't let anything happen to her, not after raising her this well. He's supposed to handle the other outer gods, and all he understands is divinity. Then, something turns up beneath the tower east of the stronghold. It's a record, ancient, in a script he has never seen. He can read it anyway. The walls talk about the one who devours everything, about avarice and envy. Same as the game, the gods get referred to in metaphor, but the words are swapped. Outer gods here means gods built out of people's faith in other worlds. And gods means the 5 great sins, there since the beginning of time, which makes the slab a record of 5 children filed as outer gods. It keeps weighing on him, and the updates on the children don't help. One of the boys has beaten the first sword, Reinhardt, whose strength was another tier even in the game. Half a year, Rinne has a seat on the 3 councils that set policy for Lurthania. Radon has united the 5 archipelagos as Pirate King, bounty in the millions. Alan's hand is already on his face. And Utia announces she is getting married to the Great Moon. The room goes quiet in 3 separate directions. Alan runs the sentence again. She isn't planning a wedding, she's declaring war on the final boss. And the girl saying it is smiling with red eyes, like this was always the plan. Crystal Ball call, and Seolrang has an announcement. She's marrying the Great Moon. Utia agrees he's a great man, then says the marriage isn't possible. They're shadows. Seolrang argues shadows can get married too. Utia's face goes dark. Shadows can't stand at his side. Seolrang says his opinion is what matters, and her evidence is that he once called her not bad. Meanwhile, Utia turns a pearl bracelet over, asking it whether her benefactor truly hates her. That's the tell. Asked about the desert, Seolrang recaps doubting him and getting reassurance instead of punishment. Now she's vowing to get strong enough to be his sword. 2 hours later, the argument is a flat no-yes shouting match. The Blue Moon keeps written minutes for its biannual meeting. 1. Nobody asks Deus about the Great Moon. 2. Around Utia, if it touches the Great Moon, no means no. 3. Flagged new. She'll be showing a childlike demeanor. Capital back alley, and 2 men ally against the Cal faction, the one packed with maniacs. Marquis Philippe leads the aristocratic faction, Duke Rungrave runs the royalists. Their weapon is a reformation letter from the Holy Kingdom of Rosario. As religion's center, Rosario can send it across nations at anyone it deems heresy, and it only goes out if multiple cardinals back it. That's where its strength comes from. Price is 2 cardinals minimum, half the bribe, and one has already had that talk. In the cathedral, 2 of the 8 cardinals meet for the second time. Sergius wants the other man's name on a reformation letter aimed at Count Palacio. He can manufacture the heresy pretext himself. The second cardinal repeats it back. Barry Allen Palacio, use my name. He agrees, privately, because now he can pocket the whole bribe. He says it from a bed between 2 women. Red tears the room apart. Utia asks if she's hearing this right. An order to kill the man she worships. White hair, red eyes, nothing behind them. The guards last 4 panels. She pins the cardinal and tells him to scream, because nobody's coming. He begs her to kill him. She's already told him over a dozen times that she can't. That number is the horror. Someone offers to die instead. She refuses, because she still needs something from him. He tried to harm him, so he gets punished. She leaves on recognizing your sins, so that you may be forgiven. 1 month on from the desert, Evan reports preparations are nearly complete. Alan's packing for the magic conference. As leader, he has to go, with the imperial family and the outsiders still open. Or that's what he'd normally think. Evan asks about the letter he keeps on him. Looking at it calms him down. It certifies him as a faction leader, and it comes with a wage. The numbers so far past expectation gold spills off the page. Given his fief's finances, he isn't asking. He wonders if this is the true magical nature of capitalism. The conference is at the Vrighton Marquisate. Warriors, merchants, even priests. A red-haired noblewoman greets him and calls him my lord. Then an aide arrives with hot news. The royalist leader got a reformation letter and was dragged to the Holy Kingdom, and the room is relieved. Footsteps. Someone asks the newcomer his business, and he stammers that he's lost. Then the gray-haired man in green drops to his knees and begs Alan to spare him. The hall watches a man from the top of the political world put his head on the floor. Politics runs on cause and justification, not underworld rules. Bowing in public is the same as handing over your authority. Marquis Philippe just gave his away in front of everyone. The crowd decides he's incredible, calm because he foresaw all of it. He foresaw none of it. 2 men moved on him this month, and both are already finished. And the Cardinal Utia, left breathing, still owes her a job. Meanwhile, Seolrang trains to be a wife, of her own accord, and sets the pan on fire. Nobody's told Alan a word of it. We open on a mouth mid-sentence, and a man face down admitting he's lost. He's begging to be spared, and the man he's begging is Count Palacio. A ballroom of nobles murmurs. A red-haired woman with a drink looks unimpressed. Rewind a few days. A noble got a mysterious letter, a glowing crystal that looks uncomfortably like a letter of reformation. It plays 5 seconds of a man on his knees, told to come to the Holy Kingdom. That's Duke Rimgrave. Then it shatters, leaving a signed card that reads, "You are next." A letter of reformation ends your politics, and it's only supposed to hit nobles tied to heretics. Rimgrave was tied to nobody, and it found him anyway. One noble is certain, Palacio did it, then hits the part that matters. He's next. A body hits the floor. So a man lies prostrate before Alan, promising to quit politics if the Count fixes this. Alan's face goes blank, internally asking why him, and whether those 2 did something again. Altia and Zenobia get read as Asteria's 3rd-generation underworld masterminds, and the puppet theory dies right there. 3rd day of the conference, and he heads east. Someone says a marquis also got a letter, then asks if Alan sent him. Alan asks how he'd manage that, then says he'll take it into consideration. He just wanted out of the conversation. Elsewhere, Labyrinth City, Lantuna, endless exploration, 5 guilds at its peak. A rookie can't believe a guild leader takes 1,000 alone. Aldrich of Bloody Iron took the job for the Fat Advance, which is odd, since multiples of 5 are safe floors. Floor 20. And one of his people says something really is down here. It's a goblin, the weakest thing down here, and worth double their advance. Then someone notices its eastern clothes, and it tells them they're noisy. 1/, and the next man doesn't finish his sentence. Bodies drop, a golden blade comes through, and what's left standing is a blood-spattered face, one blue eye lit. That was never a goblin. He's the king of starving demons, and he's climbing toward the surface. Back east, Alan's staring up at a tower the size of a hill. Leanne welcomes him in, and since the conference starts tomorrow, he asks for the library. In the corridor, a blue-haired woman calls a mage an idiot for not grasping this much. That's the Blue Vice Tower Master, prideful, demanding another round while the flattened mage swears revenge. She spots Alan, sizes up the friend this wiped-out mage brought, and the mage locks up mid-greeting. Alan greets her by rank, says it's been half a year, tells her to relax. Onlookers ask if this is illusion magic, since nothing is dispelling it. She says meddling isn't her business, but fellow mages should get along. She apologizes, he agrees, she vanishes on the spot, and the watchers collapse. Alan wonders if he did something wrong. Leanne says the way that utter ass of a mage changes in front of him is astounding. That's how Alan learns Fenia's nickname. A blonde man in purple flirts at Leanne, gets told to get lost, hears Count Palacio, and switches to charm. He's Baruch, son of the Purple Magic Tower's master. Alan's never seen him before. Baruch says he'll come to like him soon. Leanne's summary: 4th rank, stole someone else's research, exists to mock people. Alan's jealous anyway, because 4th rank at that age is genius territory. The gaps between ranks widen hard, and 7th to 8th is unfathomable. Leanne points him at the 38th floor and goes to prep her presentation. 2 things to do up there. First, he sets every broken clock in the room to 12. Second, he pulls a black book with no title or author and takes a nail guard out of a hidden space inside. Next day, after the Green Magic Tower presents, someone calls his title on the match grounds. Sir Baruch has formally challenged him to a duel, and they want an answer right now. The extra page then mentions that past mid-4th rank, a mage reads your exact strength, which means Baruch already looked. Alan's day opens with a man reading a formal duel challenge at him in public. Some Sir Baruch wants a match, and he's asked right there if he accepts. A woman apologizes about someone hounding her over marriage, and the name Leanne comes up. Then a blonde in a purple cape strolls up asking for teachings from such a grot mage. He's the son of the Magic Tower Master, and he wants influence stacked on the title. He's credited with the Outer God dealings and the Barayaka betrayal. Then he clocks the ring, a mere rank 3. So, a mage who lies out of pride makes a perfect stepping stone, and he asks if the Count's scared. Alan's rule is simpler: pick a fight for no reason, and you get one. He accepts. Match grounds, spell circle, spectators ringed around it, lethal magic band. The blonde opens huge, needing this done before anyone learns how bad he actually is. Halfway through the cast, he stops. His feet are heavy and then cold. Ice tears out of the ground, and the spell names itself Renown of a Snowy Mountain. Back up a little, to before any of this. An elder in green robes can't believe Fenia apologized and asks his disciple if she's studied herself mad. It's true, she did it after seeing Count Palacio. The mage's appraisal is brutal and, on paper, correct. No high-rank energy, small mana reserve. Except the ice keeps building. First, it's something a rank 5 couldn't manage. Then they catch that he's nearly perfected 3 spells combined. Crystallization lands with a constellation burning behind him. Rotation follows. The bloom swallows the grounds, the blonde screams once, and he's sealed standing up inside the ice. The call goes to Alan Palacio, and snow comes down over the grounds. The crowd swarms him, certain that arrangement is an original spell. Alan waves it off and says he's merely a rank 3 mage. Then the laugh dies. Somebody excuses himself, and the rest of them run. Alan walks off alone, thrilled. Finally, some quiet. He turns over a black item he's been sitting on, Memories of the Black Eve. It stores 1 spell and gives it back enhanced if the magic releases in the frigid cold. Frigid cold already eats 3 of his 5 spells, so clasping for it amplifies him and frees up all 5. And Renown of a Snowy Mountain freezes the air the instant the spell fully manifests. Phrases are the keys to approach the laws. Say one while you understand it and you're handling the law itself, not a spell's traits. After a break, he's heading out at night for what he prepared for. The tower announces the 38th floor. A voice commends the riddle solving, and he says he came for more riddles. It calls itself the executioner feared and worshipped by everything that disturbs the world, the eternal fear, and also the one mages call the Chalice of Beginnings. Archmage Heinkel, a small figure in blue, steps out, and Alan knows a mistake here is fatal. Players called her the Retry Witch, because you win her item by picking a dialogue option. 3 choices come up. Pick wrong and you die instantly. One option on the board is about wanting to drink some milk. Raise that subject and she kills you on the spot, hence the Angry Milk Witch. No wonder she feels this dangerous, and he quietly keeps magic in reserve. Red light climbs up around her. She's ready for his riddle and then she shrieks. He'd only ever seen her sitting down in the game. She is really, really short. She's up in a blue dress and gets 1 syllable out. Then she shoves the item at him. She announces she's leaving, and she's gone. Then it lands. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking behind him. He shrugs it off, because the item came easy. But the one thing in this tower that kills you over a wrong word just glanced past his shoulder and ran. We're back at the desk with Leanne, whose magic control is absurdly clean for a rank 3. Alan asks about that rank again. She says it's the 15th time, and he eyes rank 4. Then day 4 lands and the studying stops. An outer god surfaced in Larthania's labyrinth about a week ago. Alan seals a letter, hands it to Evan, and says they leave now. Blue-haired Fenia sees him off with a shout loud enough to rattle the courtyard. For a girl who came out specially, she looks suspiciously delighted he's going. Then the signboard, Labyrinth City, Larthania. He'd heard Rene was climbing to the top. These rooftops say he underestimated the word top. The name on all of it is Murda, and appraisers run this city, which is why he's here to ask a favor. At the gate, they want an appointment. He says it's urgent. Tell her Count Palacio is here. The staffer in green is unimpressed. Alan's the 25th chancer today, and skipping the queue costs 3,000 gold. That's mansion money. So he asks about booking properly, and the man starts with 10 months. Then someone hammers on the door, and a masked figure hauls that staffer up by the collar, sneering at him for having no money. Meet Lavalo Greystone, son of the Lord of Larthania, and the staff reaction is unprintable. A voice inside says he doesn't need to come in, and a green-haired appraiser steps out mid-flirt. She tells him to go away. Then there's blood on the stones. The Lord's son is down, and she turns to Alan, who she's been waiting for. She calls him Godfather. Lavalo gets dragged off screaming about his ties to the three councils, and how Alan will regret picking a peasant over him. Rene invites them in, confirms his letter arrived, and seats him at the head of the table. He asks why she says Godfather when the other kids call him Benefactor. She says it suits him. He sees a daughter who grew up fast and almost entirely alone. Then the favor from the letter, a place in the Outer God Suppression Unit, already prepared. She asks if this is about the scene outside. He says he only worried it would burden her, and she tells him to rest. Then someone's waking him for lunch and he can't remember falling asleep. Rene is already there, already finished, with a strategy meeting. And one more thing about Lavalo Greystone. She gave him a clean death. Alan repeats that back, stalls on the last word, and chokes on his food. Every one of Larthania's subquests traced to that man. The massacre of mercenaries on Floor 30, monsters absorbing abyssal entities, living chimera experiments. But he ruled this city like a prince, so this is functionally killing royalty. She says Alan was uncomfortable. Lavalo would have kept it up alive, and the three councils are no concern. Right, she's one of the seeds too. He says this is excessive, and she's an appraiser, so how did she handle those mercenaries? Her face falls, and she says she was only worried, with no loose ends left. He thanks her, and she calmly insists she did nothing. He asks her never to risk the life she built. She says she knows her duty. Then she fires up a huge magic circle to show him the Eye of Stalker and mentions the imprints she's collecting. Alan's brain stops, because the thing that powers up artifacts carrying a black imprint was this. He knew it as a plain support item that appraises anything under a certain mana threshold. Murd's whole fame comes from it, and past 400 imprints she expects to finish in a few years. He'd love to know what she's collecting. She walks him to the meeting room, where the first thing said is a complaint about dragging this scraggly thing along. That's Mayaun of the Ancient Tracker Guild, fourth of the 5 great guilds, who reckons one look proves the rumors inflated. Maverick of Terra Nomad, the third, says don't even hear him out. 2 more sit with them, the leader of Archon, the second, and Argonia of California, the first. They rank strength above all, so he expected hostility, just not this open. His hand closes around something, and it catches the light. He's going to have to earn this room the hard way. Frost floods a whole hall, spell circles burning frigid cold, gather, freeze. Alan joined this suppression for 2 reasons. An outer god doesn't fall to conventional force, and he needs mercenaries who'll follow his plan. But mercenaries don't take orders from a noble they haven't measured, so one asks if he wants a fight. Swords come out, and Alan points out they're the ones who asked for this. Then the arena floor erupts, ice spikes wall to wall, one move. Someone stammers that maybe he messed up. The rest are left standing in it, and one of them drops. Alan takes a chair and asks if they're willing to talk now. What he doesn't say is that this suppression is a special quest carried over from the original game, always running the same flow of events. So he already knows the room. If Argonia acknowledges him, nobody fights. And Argonia stands, horns, dark hair, white and purple armor. One of her people is already begging Alan to let it end. She says enough, and the blonde gets told they look down on Alan first. Alan asks when they descend, and it's 2 days, though they'd rather finish the meeting tomorrow. He agrees, and walks out trailing purple light. The blonde wants to know why they let that arrogant noble walk, and gets told to shut up. Argonia just saved his life. She doesn't fully understand it either, but had that attack landed, Maverick would have died right there. Then her memory, her mother's voice. When the black eye shows in the night sky, never acknowledge it. Tear it out of your memories if you can. The thing over that child is enormous and red and draconic, telling her to stand against the consumer of class. Argonia's yellow eye opens on a black ringed eye in the sky, and she wants to know who that human is. Next day, the round table votes his way, and Alan calls it a pleasant meeting with the driest face in the building. Rene didn't touch this one, and prep's done. They go down corridor by corridor clearing monsters, and watching them, Alan admits he couldn't have come alone. Then a cat tribe girl asks if the Count has a problem with beastkin. He says it wasn't discrimination, so she asks if he wants to make a kitten with her, and poses. The cat tribe puts strength above all, and her heart skipped when he overpowered her. He tells her she doesn't need to. Deeper in, another bust, and they're still only on the 4th floor. In the game, you cleared a boss and picked continue or stop, floor 31 down, 32 waiting. Out here, they've burned half a day finding the entrance. Someone shouts everyone over. A portal open with a silhouette in the light. They fall through into blue sky and open green field because every fifth floor is a safe floor. In the game, it was a save point, so Alan starts prep. The god sighted 12 floors down days ago. Maverick stands over him in the grass, unimpressed by a guy panting after a short walk. Small talk, blue sky. Then a tap, and the whole party turns. A dark figure resolves out of a white blur and red tears across the field. Maverick's down on the grass asking if that was a goblin. The thing wants to know who dares look in its eyes without permission. Alan answers with ice, the whole field freezing at once, and tells Maverick to get himself together. The ice shatters. It calls him a bug doing something interesting. Alan names it Kalis. Insignificant once, he chased knowledge, broke the law, and climbed into divinity itself, the king of starving demons. Alan's doing math he hates, because reports had this thing 3 days out and 12 floors down. It's here now, on the floor that's supposed to be safe, offering mercy if they scram. Alan tells everyone to get ready. Prepare for combat. Argonia levels her weapon. The mercenaries are ready enough, and whatever this god is becoming isn't finished yet. If it intends to drink poison, he'll gladly follow suit. And the field goes white. Ice and green light tear the grassland apart, and the thing standing in the middle eats all of it without moving. A body goes flying past the stone wall. Smoke clears, and there he is. Green skin, pointed ears, red collar, unscratched. Alan's read was right. He hasn't become an incarnate deity yet, so Alan's preparations are still pointed at the right target. Small comfort. A woman with long dark hair closes in and swings. Red light, green light, more blasts, and he hasn't moved. Alan calls it, end this fast or it doesn't end at all. Circles bloom in front of him, frost, form, renown of a snowy mountain. Then the name lands, pen of the blind. An ice spear the size of a building assembles overhead. Renee opens her tome and starts chanting. Chains rip out of the ground and lock the god down. Painted halberd of ice crystals. The halberd screams down the chains like it's riding a rail. 2 women watch from cover, and somebody says this kills him. It connects. He catches it. He catches it in one hand, tells the bug he's received his attack, then cuts it in half midair. Alan's face goes wide and sweating. That was his best shot. The god tells them it seems they still know nothing. He's excited now, so he's coming down to their level. Imperfect in this state, he admits, but amusing enough. Release. Dark green power floods out along the chains that held him. Shake. A blonde man hauls someone off the ground and runs. Bodies go up across the sky. Expand, and green swallows everything. Stone pulverized, an unknown principle. Someone down there asks what the hell just happened. Then it comes from above, blood on the panel, a light-haired figure screaming the word human. He tells them he has great expectations, then asks how they plan to entertain him. Alan runs the audit. He's never seen magic like this, and the gap isn't skill. It's information, plans, and power, lost in every regard. Empty mana potion bottles are already in the grass. Renown of a snowy mountain again, this time with resolution. Alan raises one finger, light blooming off it, and the word is revolution. An ice ring the size of the battlefield starts building. It's working, he says through his teeth, then asks Renee for help. She answers, yes, Godfather. The god watches their resolve like a joke he's already heard. Counterattacks come in, and Alan just holds, defend and defend. Cat playing with a mouse, and the bottles keep piling up. That's more than 5 potions now, and the side effects are starting. He calls Renee anyway. Chains shear apart, her tome blazes green, and the circles come back. Frost, form, pen of the blind. Then Alan opens a ledger nobody's seen. His magic runs on named penalties, and one is already checked, casting in a land of frigid cold. Take one more restriction and he gains the ability to twist the laws of the world. He can't spend that lightly, not with blood in his grin. He thinks harder, because after the phrase comes the principle, the magnification of your true nature, self-expression. So what does he have that could surpass principle? A red-eyed grin flashes through his head, heartbeat behind it, and then the answer, it is a mark. Realization and delusion share a root, and arriving there hands you the key. Ice starts crawling across the entire field. The god finally looks surprised, then annoyed, then swings, and chains shatter, and one ally takes it dead center. Alan doesn't flinch. He just keeps casting. A snowflake the size of the sky assembles while the incantation runs. The Bodhashri sign, what was once a spear, as the key, fixed into the crystals and rotating. Painted halberd of ice crystals, the second version. His fist closes on the shaft. The last line says it will arrive in these grasslands. The whole field goes white, and nobody gets to see what's left standing when it clears. Magic here isn't a spell. It's a law a mage decides on and forces the world to obey. Alan's finally has a name. Painted halberd of ice crystals. He drops it, and everything in the area freezes at once, teal swallowing the arena. Then the ice shatters. He still got what he came for. because a building-sized spire tears out of the ground. The being admits it took a hit and calls the body it's wearing weak and contemptible. Green skin, demon face, the only clean look we get all fight. Alan says hypotheticals mean nothing, and it agrees, calls him mage, calls this its loss. Then it comes apart into teal light drifting up through the ruins, and Alan drops. He wakes bandaged in the suppression unit's camp, skull splitting, unable to put strength into anything. The green-haired girl at his bedside tells him he's awake, Godfather. Myadin's bouncing back, and Argonia barely made it out, which has people asking if she's half-dragon. Why did he save her? Even granting her value for the eye of the stalker, she calls it inefficient, irrational. So he says it flat. He didn't take any of them in to use them. He sighs and asks himself if he's just destined to be a villain. Then he tells her he thinks of all of them as family. She saved him, so he saves her, and none of it is a trade. If she wants to give him something, she can celebrate his birthday sometime. Privately, he's hoping this gets him icing. Silence. What she'd been carrying is that she was a tool he raised to handle the black things. She says she understands, Godfather, and he doesn't buy it for a second. 5 days later he can move, and 3 days after that, they're out. Evan is waiting, and Evan is loud, because he was told to stay behind. Alan hides behind being a patient, and keeps the real reason quiet. Evan had no part in this event in the story he knows. Praise for the suppression unit spreads region-wide, and it's time to leave Murda. At the parting, she asks when his birthday is, and files away September 20th. In the carriage, Evan notes it's different when the kids are celebrating. Meanwhile, she's walking a palace hall, turning that word over. Family had been just a word to her, one of the empty ones. Now, Godfather isn't respect. It's a description of what he actually is to her. Closer than anyone. For a first gift, she figures the Lord's castle should do. Summer rolls over Palacio and winter comes in. His symptoms have eased, and he's dug out from under the paperwork and Utia's letters. Then Evan brings in a parcel from the Altia estate, a communication crystal. Duke Altia runs an entire faction now, and Alan says he'll never get used to a duke bowing to a count. She runs through the faction's operations, confirms his matters are handled, and congratulates him. He has no idea what for. At some point, he'd said they'd clean up the underworld first. And apparently he did. Asteria's underworld has countless organizations, Asheration included, so controlling it should be impossible. He only said it to fill air. She says it got much easier once the aristocratic faction lost its heads. He points out that was also them, not him. Then she asks what's next, and answers it herself. The king. Alan runs the tally. Shadow mastermind overnight, underworld in a single breath. An invitation to the royal ball. 1 month out, the royal family's first New Year's in 5 years. A beast-featured man in a suit delivers it by the king's own order, Palacio on the placard. Alan goes very still, and it starts snowing on the territory. So the girl who calls him family is shopping for a castle, a duke has penciled in the king, and he's walking into that ballroom. And he still has no clue what that thing whispered to him at the end. 5 floors into a labyrinth, green light, 1 tall figure in a black cloak. An unseen watcher is impressed he got this far, and asks if he'll endure next time. Cut to Alan, sighing beside a mana orb and a red royal letter. He can't work out why the queen wants him, then blames the Cal faction. And here she is, Asteria's 8th monarch, Sion Criteria. She bears the Golden Archives, a bloodline ability that inherits information like game data. When the 5 great sins hit Asteria, she joins the party and posts absurd numbers. Then there's a but, and the next panel is fire and a falling silhouette. Alan reads it in gloves, sure the crown is moving on his underworld dealings. He notes she was meme famous as a guardian dragon and indifferent to her own kingdom. In the carriage, knock the Cal faction down a peg, don't upset her, and he finally gets to coast. Night, open ground, a blonde man face down under a bladed figure. A bald man in a coat points at the problem. This one's already dead. His client paid to have Palacio removed, heard nothing, and wants the boss out here now. The agent promises to check, already guessing who becomes the scapegoat. What scares him is losing that 100% completion rate, so he goes looking for someone who knows things. A purple-lit street in Caliburn, a dark-haired man walking ahead of him. The agent erased every trace of himself, and this guy clocked him anyway. He draws a blade and demands everything the man knows about Count Palacio. That's when the threads come out. Evil spirits, cursed spirits, a purple eye opening in the dark. And the cornered man tells him he's one of those agents too. The interrogator becomes the handled one. Shock first, then flat panic. The other man is offended he'd say those words in his presence. No body, just a sigh. Meanwhile, the Great Moon convenes, and it opens like a group chat. One member announces she's marrying him, another insists they're shadows, Rene referees. Yudi has carried the moon longer than they have, so quiet down and listen. Somebody clocks how hard Rene is working to keep Sealrang calm. Then a proposition for Utia. Someone wants to report on the Eye of the Stalker in person. Rene is grinning ear to ear over an idea nobody else understands. Somebody's late, and it's Deus, cutting in before the meeting starts. An organization called the Agents is hunting the Great Moon. 15 total, 3 dealt with, 12 still standing. Utia wants them all dead tonight, and only asks whether to tear them apart or rip heads off. Radon, white hair, blue orb in hand, says measure their strength first. So he gets asked if he's serious and then whether he's a traitor. The charge is he didn't want them killed immediately, so Radon folds and the meeting adjourns. Utia in close-up, red eyes over a high collar. Alone after, Radon is stung. He'd never betray the man who handed him power and revenge. Teria, Asteria's capital, the royal castle, the carriage pulls up and an attendant mutters that there they go again. The crowd files him as the incredibly influential head of the Cal faction. A noble latches on, and Alan panics that this looks like a frontal assault on the queen. Then he flips it. Everyone gets lectured, everyone bows, his tug-of-war plan works better. Inside, the aristocrats trailing him only came to watch the Cal faction get reprimanded. Red carpet, long walk, one instruction to himself, take the lecture, look submissive. He greets the great ruler of Asteria, and the answer is to raise their heads. He says, yes, your majesty, while the gallery celebrates the Cal faction finally getting what's coming. She takes that in, starts a sentence, and Alan's hand goes to his chest. And in front of a room that came to watch him punished, she makes him a marquee. The page closes on a gag. Deus's hobby is puppetry, and someone wants a demonstration. Strange joke to park beside a man in Caliburn who fights with threads. Alan's on one knee in the throne room, and the queen has already decided something. She calls him Count Palatio, then bestows a new title on him, Marquis. The court erupts, since she was propping up the Cal faction a minute ago. Alan reads it colder. She's showing him royal authority could crush him any time. Then she tells him to raise his head. He looks up, she's smiling, and she waves him off to the banquet. He leaves rattled in a way politics never manages, because Sean was smiling. Then someone corners him and demands to know what he did this time. Cut to the Ashtarlon slums, an old man muttering that nothing can stop him now. He knelt, spent a month tortured in the Holy Kingdom, and lost every scrap of authority. Now even the queen has acknowledged Palacio. He gives a password at a door and gets waved to the very back. The room is already a slaughterhouse, and he still asks if she's the boss. Then he states his business, the assassination of Palacio, whatever the price. A hand grabs him. A blonde girl steps out mid-yawn, complaining this is such a pain. Gold lightning tears across the room wall to wall. The old man runs. She answers her own question, her husband, since they're marrying soon anyway. Not one person lays their hands on her benefactor. Somewhere calmer, Alan's eating every dessert in reach to survive until next week. Evan keeps starting on Lord C and correcting himself to Marquis, still baffled by the queen. They're headed for Atla, grass, and desert, and the desert sits near Colony. Kalis is handled, so now he needs the ruins there. To revitalize what Heinkel gave him, he has to reach Raucus. And cleaning up the underworld was the excuse for the rank, so now he has to do it. Out comes the notebook. Game villains, the Cal faction over the underworld, and the agents, elites on a special route. Then 2 titles sit side by side, Psychedelia and Calypsophobia. Same developers, same time, same place. He quit the second one early, so he knows almost nothing about it, which means every change he's made in one game might be rewriting the other. Past the password caves waited a boss everyone cursed by name, the Spine Splitter. Alan announces to Agent Al-Kamael that under the first laws he requests 1 pro and stops. The place is in shambles. Several hours earlier, a red-eyed girl in a black gown tells the swordsman she'll kill him. 300 years of carnage, the heads of everyone who got famous for being strong. One clash. He's on the floor coughing, asking what's happening to his mind. The fear, then the despair, then the hopelessness, then it starts again. She tells him laying a hand on that man is a grave crime indeed. Then judgment. Red tendrils take him apart, and the 300-year monster screams to the end. She tells him to be grateful to Sealrang. That's how the agents who ruled the underworld got swallowed by the shadows. In the present, Evan asks if what the Marquis came for is really in this wreck. It's a treasure trove that ownership magic should have sealed, so Al-Kamael must have hit trouble. Alan says they're taking everything, and Evan asks him not to say that wearing that face. Money doesn't grow on trees, except apparently here. Then a blonde girl comes flying at him yelling benefactor. On the desert road, she asks him for something, and he says sure. He's stuck on how much colder she is, wondering if the betrayal did that. He spots a witness line and assumes she wants him as a guarantor. She tells him no, just sign at the top. It's a marriage certificate. The husband line says Alan, the wife line says Seolrang. She's beaming, and she'd really like him to sign it. The one clean bit of news is his mana poisoning has finally cleared. So he's holding a certificate with his own name on the husband line. No idea the girl asking is the one who erased the agents in his name. Night in the Comelin Duchy, where a long-haired man learns every agent he had has vanished. Asteria's the same story. Every organization they bought abyssal entities through is gone. The subordinate kneeling for it blames the Cal faction's unexpected growth. His master says there's no need to bow, then offers amends through death. The Dark strings him up, and a subordinate named Inzala takes over. Down in a lab, a subject screams in a green-lit cell. The notes stay calm. Abyssal gems cause severe anxiety and kill control over violent urges. They only test people strong enough to survive one, and the colony stock is running dry. Then one line in the notes reframes the whole room. Kalman was a success. Several weeks ago, a spiky-haired giant is told the Seeker threw in extra and someone interfering is coming. He offers to handle that one too, and asks who? Count Palazzo. Present day, they thought Kalman alone would suffice, and Kalman lost. Which makes the Count a far stronger variable than expected. Keep watching Colony's Underworld, and as for Asteria, nothing personal. Alan just keeps getting in the way. Not a blade, reputation. Bribed nobles carry his regrets to Palacio, and shaken dignity cracks fast. Green eyes, a smirk, and this is best for everyone. Cut to a blonde girl with hearts in her eyes, asking to become a family. She has a certificate, an actual document, and her plan to own him with it hardened while he was gone. So Alan stalls. Reconsider when you're older, meaning 2 years, when she's more reliable. Sealrang agrees instantly and cheerfully. At the Forgotten Ruins, she insists she'll wait. Another voice says the same, and he heads in. Stonework, a sword, then the central tower, where a gold circle ignites under him. A dragon, maybe a draconian, asking if he can see it. Tendrils unfold, and his class has risen since he put down outer gods before they fully manifested. Truthfully, it expected him to fail. He admits he nearly died, and it finds a human surviving that fascinating. He says he used self-expression, and it asks if he even knows of conceptualization. Alan does a full chibi spit take. It roars laughing, decides a mage ought to be prideful, and bets, move that fabrication, she'll call him master. He keeps it small. Frost, form, snow, mountain, pen of the blind, the painted halberd of ice crystals. It flies, and it detonates against the tower floor. The dragon calls foul instantly. He lied. He said he didn't know conceptualization. Chibi Alan asks if she's really not keeping her word. He says again that he doesn't know it, he just expressed phrases as principles and memorized names, which is when the lecture starts. Magic isn't surface principles. You reach the laws mages formed by recalling the memories of when phrases were made. Phrases have 2 uses. Nobody alive can pass conceptualization down, which is why she can't believe him. Her order is understanding first, magic second. His is inverted, manifesting until the signs taught him meaning. White hair, horns, and a face that stopped being amused. Then she flickers, hitting the limit of what her manifestation can hold. On her way out, she gives him a job. Find Sparrow's wand, take its chance in phrases. Some fool put their mind in a weapon, and if he's right, he could unravel every mage's magics. A carriage rattles down a desert road. Seal rang beside him, Sparrow's wand on his mind. It's in Colony's royal treasury, and enough Colosseum victories buy you 1 artifact out of it. He's run this quest before, he's just never picked Sparrow. Sealrang explores Colony's packed streets, spotting holy knights and maybe a wizard's symbol. Then, a hall, loud enough that he asks what's happening. A voice tells him it's been a truly long time. White hair, black and red dress, red heels, hair to the floor. His hands go still, and the caption gets there first. Familiar red eyes. Utia. The girl he pulled out of the worst night of her life is grown, and he's the one who looks lost. In the coda, she tells him to keep his promise, while his mana reads completely empty after an outer god. White hair, and then a pair of red eyes Alan knows better than his own face. It takes him a beat to place them, because he's only ever seen them on a screen. Utia. A kid tugs her robes and calls her a pretty saintess, and she corrects him. Cardinal, actually. Black robes, veil, and the alley kids eat it up. She suggests they move this somewhere with fewer witnesses, and Sealrang votes for the guild. In the carriage, Alan asks Evan what a cardinal actually is here. Cardinals sit 1 rung under the Pope in Rosario, and with the right paperwork, a cardinal can file an outcall, which is how you proclaim a crusade. The girl he mails letters to can start a holy war on procedure. Intel on these kids is nearly impossible to get, so he had no clue. Then his brain lands on the useful part. They write to each other, which makes this a favor he can call in. Real connections, at last. Inside, Utia tells her benefactor to make himself at home, and Seolrang claims the seat next to him. The room drops about 9 degrees. He asks if she came on business, and she says yes, but it's an excuse. She wanted to tell him about the cardinal thing in person. She says she's glad to finally meet him, and so is he. The whiplash is real, because the only version of her he'd seen was drenched in blood and laughing. This one grew up well, and he's quietly, stupidly proud of her. Then Seolrang pokes at whether this meeting is really a coincidence, and the room goes red. Her aura comes off her like heat off a road, and the accusation is going against the moon's orders. Seolrang folds and apologizes. Alan, blind to every layer of this, says he'd love it if they got along. Utia says they're incredibly close. Right, Seolrang? Seolrang agrees the way a hostage agrees. Then the cat girl asks if he's still considering it in 2 years, and Alan's soul leaves his body. Utia asks what he means, and Seolrang announces he promised to seriously consider marrying her. He explains, fast, that it was a placating lie. Utia informs Seolrang she's far too young to marry. Seolrang counters that Utia is the real problem because Utia is old. Utia, sweet as sugar, notes she's only 2 years older, and Seolrang says Rinne told her the estimate is 1,000. The building falls down. Utia stands in the dust and notes the structure was rather weak. Fresh reminder of exactly who he's having tea with. She takes Seolrang upstairs, and he gets back to why he came. The guild treasury only opens for an A-rank combatant. 2 days later, he's in a coliseum packed with F ranks because winning the Royale skips him to D. The whole field has already agreed the Count is the common enemy. Every spell he owns was built for one target, so he redoes the math. Enough force to drop an F rank in one hit, radius stretched as far as it goes. Frigid cold, ice crystal, enhancement, compression, vacuum, regression to origin. The arena disappears under white. When it clears, everyone is on their back and the announcer is screaming his name. D rank, 1 strike, and a mana hall scraped empty because he overcooked the radius. He's still on his knees when Evan tells him Utia sent a gift. It's a wand topped with a purple skull, out of the treasury he hasn't earned. Sparrow's wand. An oldest daughter, turning filial hits different, he decides. Next day, mana restored, he pours it in, and the skull yawns awake. He asks for its chants and phrases. It asks if an idiot like him could even use them, then tells him to screw off. Then Evan walks in with a letter of challenge from an A rank named Filcian. Alan is D rank, which makes no sense until he remembers you can only challenge upward. An A rank who ducks his own tier risks demotion, and a D rank who wins goes all the way up. So he turns to the rude skull and offers it a bet. The talking skull won't let it go, so Alan takes the bet to shut it up. Next day, that bet has fully hijacked his competitive streak. We're in a packed coliseum, and the announcer is selling the card. A B rank named Fulrius threw down the challenge, and the rookie meeting him is Count Palatio. The crowd came for a bloodbath. Alan has read every report on this guy, and he thinks he's found a path. Fulrius did his own math. Ice specialty, casting delay, and non-specialties that land soft. Then he adds the part that matters. He's Flame Beast tribe, and flame is his specialty. The arena goes orange. Alan's frost gets eaten on contact because ice doesn't trade evenly with its opposite. Fulrius wonders whether to end it now or wait out the noble's one big spell. Alan isn't dragging it out either. Thunder Array. Blue light crawls up his arm and the field changes color. Fulrius reads it as a non-specialty, which should mean weak, and moves in mid-chant. That's the last clean read he gets. Because the lightning isn't aimed outward, it's going into Alan. His hair goes white, his outline goes blue. Thunder God form. Fulrius swings at where Alan was standing and hits open air. What follows isn't a fight. It's a man getting hit from 4 sides by something that arrives before the sound. He manages 1 syllable. Then he's face down in the sand, and the Colosseum is screaming one name. Here's the part the crowd doesn't get told. The crest swaps his body for mana with the properties of lightning, so the chant is an enchantment on himself. Mana drain isn't the danger the crest is. If he'd missed the timing, he comes apart at the molecular level like a firework. He figures he should be glad he's breathing. He's bleeding, because that array fused into his body and collapses at the slightest movement. He stopped mid-match to rebuild his own physical array, still not sure it held. The kids come sprinting across the field, loud about his injuries. He insists he's fine. The skull wants credit. Alan suspects he was being messed with. He won the bet. Next day, palm trees, a carriage, the royal castle of the colony. Even at A rank, the treasury wouldn't have opened until next week. He's walking in today on the blonde's name alone. He badly underestimated what a Baba Yaga opens. The skull picks this ride to ask whether he'd like to succeed it, mascot routine included. It swears its laws outscale generations of other mages. Magic he'll take. A contract is a different animal, and they're still arguing when they arrive. A combatant seeks an audience, and Alan bows to Carmares III. The king calls the match magnificent and confirms only a proven combatant opens the treasury. Then he mentions one more gift, mentions he has a daughter, and asks what Alan thinks. Alan's entire face becomes a question mark. Accepting is optional, the king says, so think it through. Maxim walks him to the gold doors, and 30 minutes later he finds it in a corner. He takes a contract token instead of the rings and ornaments everyone else grabs. He's also still working out how you politely decline a king's daughter. On the road back, she admits she showed the king no respect, since the first Baba Yaga acts as she likes. He asks what the two of them discussed while he was inside. She says normal stuff. She smiles the whole time, and he can't shake the feeling that room was wrong. The king is still turning it over, amazed that pride like hers smiled at all. Under the usual coldness, what came off her was treasonous bloodlust. Then a servant announces the cardinal is requesting an audience. Let her in. She thanks him for his unchanging hospitality, and the king clocks it she seems different from usual. Behind her, something in the frame does not read as human. She says there's something she heard that she'd like to ask him about. Midnight at the palace, and the king is pacing his hall calling this ridiculous. First Seol rang, now Utia. Seol rang always stayed roughly in line, and tonight she showed the crown open hostility. Nobody says a word. Of the 5 Baba Yaga seats, 2 sit empty, and the throne cannot lose a third. So he offered Count Palacio an alliance sweetened with his own daughter. It paid either way, until the king learned his target has ties to Cardinal Utia Bludia. And then the Holy Kingdom walks in. She has a question, and he tells her to ask anything, because you don't stonewall a cardinal. She asks whether he really offered her teacher a troublesome gift, then asks if he won't answer. The whole panel goes black. A sitting king is sweating over a border county's third son, wondering who he really is. Meanwhile, that man is dragging a screaming staff down a corridor. He steps into the gold, and the thing waiting there greets its mage. It stretches out the word master until he reminds it they had an agreement. Then it clocks the new staff and the new magic, and admits he pulled it off. He needed status before they could talk, so what standard is the world judging him by? Divinity. His whole face rejects it. You can kill a god here and absorb nothing, so erasing an outer god shouldn't hand a powerless man anything. All true, the god says, if the god killer was a regular human. So why can't humans hold divinity? No vessel. The vessel is faith. Belief fills the cup, and somebody believes in him hard enough to pour in a fraction of a god. Then he asks whether this gets him one of those absurd authorities the gods run on. The greed switch flips instantly. Divinity has ranks, and his rate's about as high as a backwater frontier. He protests that he already destroyed 2 outer gods. Destroying isn't absorbing, he only erased them temporarily and managed it because he already had status. What he walked away with was their will, and their status came attached. What matters, the god says, is that he perceives truth now. So he runs his prepared list. The outer gods rank, the inheritor of the will, the divine beast, the divine ministry, the tablet at the fortress. The tablet only existed to frame the situation he's in, and beast and ministry point at one title, the mage. Every question was one thread, and he can now read the truth waiting in the deep sea. The god cannot speak of the past directly because they are watching. The things that gnaw at the roots of history, the ones who ended the age of gods. Then a token drops into his palm, bound for the most senior mermaid, who'll guide him. He'll go, since Raxus and a sealed relic were already on the route. He's earned the recognition of the black and the blue, meaning a great god has acknowledged him. Then the god asks for the staff, to upgrade it and bank power. The staff pleads that it belongs at the mage's side. Alan says sure. Evan and Seolrang have been waiting, and what he brings back has them staring. Guild, merchant caravan, and by morning he's at the colony's border gate, where a girl in black catches him to tell her teacher she's glad. And the king is standing at the north gate in person. He came to see him off and bestow a gift, laughing far too loud. His motto is more money is better, but royal generosity this size carries political intent. He says it's more than he deserves. The king grabs both his hands and confesses devotion in front of the caravan. Alan folds. The wagons roll, the cardinal likes her odds, and the king goes home with one lesson. Never touch Count Palacio. On the road, he portions out gold coins, which might cover the estate's deficit. Evan asks if a peaceful life is what he wants, and he says he's only busy. Evan says it doesn't look peaceful, and it won't in a few years either. Then he makes a crack about the Count's sweet potato skills, which is how dinner becomes sweet potatoes for a man now sobbing about his petty lord. The caravan points at Raxus, and past the coast is whatever the deep sea has been hiding. The king's gifts get shoved in a drawer, the bags get packed, and he's gone. He's headed for Larthania on the road to Raxus, so he calls it a detour. An hour in, Evan asks what's eating him, and it's what his magic teacher said. Any mage who can hold a concept can express himself, and every mage proves it. Every mage except this one. So she leaves him 2 doors. An inhuman existence beyond imagination, or something too old to remember. He's not buying either. An omnipotent being wouldn't be struggling this hard, and the age of the forgotten gods was a footnote in his game. One beastkin stat line worth 10% magic attack. He didn't live it. He shelves it. The deep sea answers that later, and the coming crisis won't wait. Then dinner happens and the philosophy evaporates, because somebody's praying over the food to the count that tonight isn't sweet potatoes. Days later, in Larthania's best gift shop, he picks an old fountain pen, and the shop gossip does the real work. Another 3 council's member is dead Bhima, and the room figures a man taking Ashatalon bribes had it coming. Riot's already gone, which leaves one councilman standing. Her name is Rinne. Word is the councils tore each other apart, and Rinne finished both for blackmailing her godfather. Alan goes very quiet. He's the godfather. Cut to the Caliburn side palace, where good-for-nothing second Prince Tyrion is drinking himself annoyed. He has Deus Michaelian investigated the second sword, who beat undisputed first sword Reinhardt, and the report is useless. Half says Deus mimics spellcasting nightly. The rest says he won't stop praising Count Palacio at the Five Swords meeting. Tyrion's still eating a humiliation from a mock duel his father approved, because Deus objected to how he treats women. The only thing holding his faction together is a box of items from the dark side of Ashutalon. So when a proposal lands offering him a foreign noble to lean on low risk, no king's recognition shielding the target, he takes it. He's pleased with himself for roughly 1 panel. Then the Sword of Caliburn walks in uninvited. Deus greets the successor of the Five Swords, and the prince's first coherent word is bastard. He wants to know if the successor started the slander about Count Palacio, and Tyrion asks, what if it's true? Deus says it isn't, so withdraw it. The prince jumps straight to treason and brazen demands. Deus says there's no rebellion, though the prince might get caught in an accident where the palace collapses. Is that a threat? The prince asks. Deus says he's merely expressing concern about the architecture. Tyrion asks what happens if he refuses. Deus says that's a shame. 1 swing, and the 4th pillar of a royal palace stops existing. The ceiling opens in white slashes, the walls fold, and the prince is standing in a rainstorm that used to be a room. Deus notes, calm as anything, that the crack in that pillar's been there 18 years, and thanks him for the maintenance lesson. Tyrion is screaming that he'll withdraw it before the dust settles. Then Deus calls it a scratch. A retainer sprints in, gets told the worry was unnecessary, and starts planning to use this to bring Deus down. On his way out, Deus mentions the king might enjoy hearing about the prince's foreign dark ties and ordering his imprisonment. He trusts they'll make the right choice and walks into the rain. By morning, the story is that the prince struck Deus, and Deus set it aside to worry about him. Back with Alan, the last councilwoman standing delivers his artifact and refuses payment, so he pays anyway. Then he hands her the fountain pen, and she lights up like nobody's ever bought her anything. He decides there's no way a girl this sweet did what the rumor says. The panel right after is Rin in green fire under a deer skull. She tells him to call if he needs her, and her expressions seem more varied now. Her carriage rolls out, and she's left at the gate holding the box like it's her first. And his last thought isn't the prince, or the pillar, or the councilman. It's that he has to move fast, because there isn't much time left. The road out of Larthania breaks onto the coast, and there's open water for the first time all trip. Raxus is a short ride ahead. Then something drops out of the sky and nearly puts the horses in a ditch. It's a kid. A very small kid in an oversized witch hat, blocking a county lord's carriage and demanding their food. Evan has a blade out before the sentence finishes. So the kid reveals his identity with enormous ceremony, felon of the Blue Magic Tower, genius third circle mage. Then his older sister arrives. Fania needs 1 second to work out that her brother just tried to mug a Lord Count for lunch, so she blasts him down the road. He goes up screaming, lands in the dirt, and gets called a nice shot. He crawls back calling her sis. She notes he suddenly knows honorifics and fires again. She apologizes. Alan files it under this world having too many unhinged mages, which tracks, since the game had an NPC call the tower's master a psychopath. He offers them the carriage anyway and makes a point of saying they can refuse. They do not refuse, they beg with both hands. He asks why 2 tower mages are out here hunting strangers for food. An errand from their master, some swindlers, a wrecked lord's castle, and a fast exit. They have business in Raxus too, and information to go with it. Ships are disappearing. Not storms, not reefs, dragged straight down off the Raxus coast, and treasure hunters blame merfolk who supposedly vanished ages ago. Alan goes very quiet. Unlike the outer gods, whose appearances the lore keeps deliberately vague, the merfolk have a defined storyline, and it does not start for years. Butterfly Effect covers a lot of things, but it does not cover this. If the merfolk are on the board early, something is putting them there, maybe another outer god surfacing instead. At the harbor, the fare is 100 gold ahead, 10 times normal, or wait 2 weeks. Alan hands over 400 without blinking. His Majesty's gift is doing a lot of work today. 1 day out, the great third circle prodigy is hanging off the rail, turning colors. Seasickness doesn't care what circle you are. Then the cannon fire starts, grapples, boarding ropes, and pirates laughing their way over the rail. Alan does the math and hates it. Phinia and Evan are wrecked from the sea, and any spell big enough to matter sinks the ship. So he sits down under a sword and lets himself get captured. The ship's owner, meanwhile, is cutting a deal. Take the cargo, And by the way, there's a mage and a noble aboard worth a serious ransom. Sold them out in under a minute. Fenia's mana restraints are already off, and Alan is about to drop his own, when a voice above the deck says the noise is annoying him. Every head on that deck turns, and the ship goes quiet on 2 words. Sea King. White hair, white armor, coming down like the air owes him a favor. The Pirate King, who united 6 of the 7 Isles, sank over 50 ships, tore countless captains apart, and destroyed the Black Fangs. A man who kills because it amuses him. Every pirate on that deck folds. Then he looks at the noble sitting quietly in the middle of it and calls him boss. It's Radon, the one sin the game never showed you, because the only artwork came from after he became one of the 5. White hair, white eyes, and a guess Alan and Evan built out of scraps that just landed dead on. Radon greets Evan by name, thanks him for keeping the Lord Count safe, and complains Alan should have sent word ahead. Then something occurs to him. He turns and asks whether that man said something about selling his boss, and he takes the captain apart on his own deck, grinning the whole time. He'll escort them to Raxus himself, but first they rest at the 7 Archipelago. Alan agrees, while privately checking whether this man has awakened as a sin yet. What they sail into is not a pirate den. It's a clean, ordered, meticulously governed city, the heart of 6 unified isles. The first isle, and the king of it has decided Alan is his guest. Blackwater, the last archipelago the sea god never took, and its seawolf turf. Their supply ship has been missing for days. The men reporting it can barely speak in front of Tertigan, the captain they call the Destroyer. He says one name, Radon, then tells the messenger to come closer. He takes the man apart in his own hall, then asks how much tribute is left. 1,500 more people, on top of 20,000 bodies already handed over. His crew figures merfolk keep them safe at sea. Tertogen says merfolk might hold Radon's White Moon fleet. They do not hold Radon. 6 captains declared war on him once, and he opened all 6 up, blessing of Quad and all. Dozens of ships went down, and Radon took both of Tertogen's arms, which is when something in the dark asked if he wanted power. The voice says, forget killing Radon, and offers the world instead. The price is human flesh, fed to the merfolk until their souls pile up and they trust him. Then he stops being a man. In the present, he reads 1,500 bodies like a shopping list, and says there might be a way. Out on Radon's first isle, Alan is a house guest in Killing Heat. Radon mentions the ship he raided wasn't a merchant run to Raxus. It was a Seawolf supply ship, and the cargo was human flesh. He doesn't know how those pirates control the merfolk, only that they arrived as he took the 7 Archipelago. Merfolk plus human flesh puts one phrase in Alan's head, outer god. The flesh is fuel for a summoning, and if that thing lands, the region goes with it. So Alan invites himself along, since he has business in the deep sea anyway. He tells himself it's for Radon's safety, which is a wildly parental thought about a pirate king. Then he asks about the rumors, right as somebody starts screaming a room away. Raiden says he doesn't kill over a bad mood and files the demon nickname under revenge. Alan had been quietly terrified, because the gods take broken children, the world's laws break, and outer things walk in. He decides the rumors were oversold, and lets himself be proud they turned out fine. Radon's read, his boss is surprisingly normal, and he'd assumed the man ran on hypnosis magic. Alan does not know what to do with that. Alan asks for the Raxus tour anyway, to meet an appraiser named Alexion. He's carrying Heinkel's Ring of the Mad One and the relic from the colony. Alexion is a slum financier who charges by mood and opens by calling your treasure fake. Next morning, Radon walks in with the unfindable appraiser hogtied and begging. Overnight, Alan says please appraise these, and Alexion apologizes for dropping a sword he never touched. Radon asks, sincerely, whether he looks like a kidnapper, since the invitation was polite. The polite invitation is why the man has hiccups. 10 minutes for a 2-hour job, and Alan feels bad enough to let him go. Alexion thanks him for sparing his life, which nobody alive has heard that man do. A few days later, they're on open water toward the Seawolf base, Alan upright and cheerful. That's the Vice Tower Master's seasickness medicine, so Hana Kirishina does alchemy too. Then we cut to Pagul, in the southern principality of Korcha, next to Caliburn, running thousands of people through drugs and prostitution. Its boss, Darte, swears he only did what he was told, while purple threads go through the building. Somewhere quieter, a report says this isn't the command base. Past Count Barthez and Count Brielle, 3 more names signed off, and Yuna is working the upper ranks. The man taking that report is hidden, and he's Blue Moon. Everything is for the Great Moon, and nobody who moved against him gets gentle treatment. Then the page falls away into moonlight, long before any of this. An orphanage yard, 2 kids, 1 enormous moon. One of them looks up and tells Mr. Moon she won again today. The other says it was only tag, and tomorrow they're playing war. Nobody has said yet what was listening on the other side of that moon. Open water, and the fleet is sailing out with Radon's people folded into it. On deck, someone's asking whether the Vice Tower Master really needed to come along. Alan says he suggested it himself, because she's capable. Cut back to how that invitation actually went. He asked on a whim, and she heard the word war and locked up. So he mentions the sea wolves are tangled up in her merfolk investigation. She starts to stammer, and he asks if that's a refusal. She's on the ship in under a second. Suitcase packed, investigation postponed, and Alan quietly wondering if that worked. Evan notes how closely she trails him now and finds it strange. Then Alan asks out loud whether it's too late to learn what misunderstanding she's under. Meanwhile, Radahn's pirate lords are eaten alive with jealousy over their captain. Jackal Darkstyes holds the 6th Fleet, Luna Bloodgrave the 2nd, Garrett Deathsea the 5th, Sabina Ghostcrown of the 3rd figures. The Count's strength is middling at best. Someone points out she doesn't trust him either. They don't trust the Count. They trust the captain. And that lands for about 9 seconds. Sea wolves ahead, and prepare for battle goes down the whole line. Their captain screams from the rail while Alan and Evan watch from theirs. Then, something on the far deck calls them foolish creatures, and the water starts moving wrong. Merfolk come over the sides on both fleets at once. Sailors are shrieking that the merfolk are attacking them too. And in the middle of it, a man in a wide hat grins as green light crawls out of him. Alan's side reads it as infighting, maybe a trap. Alan reads it as the thing he was afraid of. The man announces that now all the souls have arrived, he will become a god. The merfolk stop fighting each other and guard his body, the one their god chose. Men dragged over rails, blades out, hulls splitting, one lord roaring at everyone to stay sharp. Someone says it out loud. At this rate, they're going down. Then the temperature drops. The Vice Tower Master opens up and frost races out across the waves. She freezes the merfolk mid-leap, the swarm behind them, the hulls. Then she keeps going, and the ocean goes solid to the horizon. An icebound sea. Neither fleet can process it. The only sentence anyone manages is that he froze the sea. Alan stands on it and notes that frigid cold is that powerful. She apologizes because a merfolk investigation wasn't supposed to end here. He tells her to just get them through it, which is when the ice starts cracking. They come back up through it in numbers nobody can hold. So the vortex opens, a whirlpool the width of the fleet, grinding everything in it to pieces. Alan calls it impressive and means it. And then, right as it looks winnable, something underneath opens an eye. It descends. The wave takes the ship sideways, and Alan is hauled clear, screaming for someone. She's apologizing again, saying she never thought it would get this bad. He tells her that normally what she did would have been enough. Then he sends Evan and Radahn after the merfolk, and they move without a question. Alan already knows what's in the water, and says this isn't the worst case. More precisely, it's a byproduct. The thing has an eye of truth that sees through all creation and drowns everything it passes. Outer God, Kalak Kul, and disaster arrives with its descent. What's actually surfaced is an escort carrying that eye, and killing it stops the descent. Which brings him to the token from the contract of the Blind One. Releasing its power conceals one oath of restraint. So the penalty crushing his magic pool is gone. So he says he'll give it a try. Thunder array. The sky over a frozen ocean turns white, and far below, something enormous stirs and asks how this could be. It knows a name for him. The one who consumes. We're still mid-fight, and he's decided this doesn't count as the worst case yet. So he tries the thing he's been saving. Thunder array. The sky comes down in one white column, and the sea stops behaving like water. Decomposition, melting, everflow. He isn't casting one spell, he's rewriting the array while it fires. Thunder God form. Galgig's heart is wide open, and he figures he can punch through the shell if he leans. So he leans. The array at the point of impact stops being an array, becomes mana itself, then takes shape. The strike lands. Galgig comes apart against an orange sky that isn't sunset, it's the light of it dying. A knight in uniform is asking nobody what kind of magic that even was. And our guy? He's frozen solid, and it isn't the monster's doing. The problem is mana. Repeated runs meant just a scratch this time, but rewriting the array mid-cast emptied his whole reserve. Stiffness, that's what depletion does. It locks the body. Half the crew is screaming Radahn's name like they believed all along. A red-haired girl is yelling for the boss. Then the deck goes out from under him. He falls. He hits the water, the stiffness eases a little, and he remembers he can't swim. He sinks. And somewhere below him, in the dark, something gold opens. He's seen that shape 100 times in the game. Kalak Kul. The thing that drowns everyone who meets it, and it shouldn't be here. Because killing Galgig should have canceled the descent. The eye is bigger than the ship. Written across it, in letters he can read, it's watching him. Instinctive horror goes straight through his brain, past thought. Run right now, somewhere, anywhere. He can't even finish the word. Must run, must run, must run, stacking in red until there's nothing else in his head. Then something sharp cuts the water beside him. And now he can run. Someone has him, asking why he's even down here. Someone tells him to snap out of it before that thing eats him alive. And past his rescuer's shoulder, he finally sees the whole silhouette. Great moon, the star consumer, and he expected this wouldn't be easy. because the magic he'd prepared to yank Raiden back out never triggered. He can't breathe. After that, the pirate takes the sea wolves, unites the Seven Archipelago, and becomes ruler of the Eastern Sea. And our guy spends it half crippled, paying the mana bill every time. Kalak Kul ran short on sacrifices once Galgig died, so it descended unstable, and an unstable demigod dies easy. Back on the ship, the White Moon pirates have given him a title, Big Boss. They respect him even more today, because he threw himself into a rough sea for their captain. He mutters something about the deck breaking. Nobody's listening. Even the pirate lords are lining up to ask what he needs. He would like to leave. The captain finds him with 2 mugs and asks if he's really okay. Then business, the easternmost coast, means the Sifra Archipelago, and they can sail immediately. Before he goes, he hands over a gift. Nothing grand. Radon takes it like it's a crown. On the Sifra coast, the mage siblings peel off, and he spends an hour hunting the shoreline for a mermaid. He has a locket and instructions, give it to the last mermaid here, and she'll take him deep. She surfaces anyway, green-haired, asks how he got that, and agrees to guide him. A sphere seals around him, and they go down. The deeper they go, the less it feels like water, and the more like endless void. Then the void opens into ruins, and he's breathing without the sphere. She calls him the seeker of truth and tells him to follow. He's staring at her legs, and she asks if it's fascinating only possible inside this sanctuary. Green hair, glasses, and a smile that's been waiting. She introduces herself as the Observer, and she welcomes him to the sanctuary of observation. Ahead of him, lit blue at the far end of the hall, is a throne.